Hello, everybody. Welcome into our latest live broadcast. It is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. My name is CareyHolzman, and today we're going to review a very budget-friendly, aggressively priced mini PC that, well, I'm hoping lives up to its product description. From our friends over at Peladin, hopefully we'll see a lot more from them coming up. They've got some new machines coming out, and I've been so far liking everything I've seen from them, the quality, the value, what you get for the money, and I'm pretty excited to see this company continue to grow. When we first saw them, we didn't know, much like many other companies we had not heard of at the time. You know, is this a company that's a flash in the pan, or are they sticking around for a while? Some companies that were making mini PCs left and right have all gone silent. Other companies, well, such as Peladin, for example, have branched out and expanded their mini PC lineup and continue to have new innovative products coming out, which we hope to have very soon when they're released. So Peladin also makes Triku, and they also make WI-6. So if you see any three of those three brands, that's all the same parent company with the same quality and the same factories involved in everything. So in theory, they should all be the same, but marketed towards different people in the market for what you're looking to do, right? If you're looking for something powerful, mid-range, or budget. Now, we do have construction happening here at Studio C, so I apologize for the noise that you may be hearing in the background, but that is the sound of progress. You can hear that. It's my heartbeat. So welcome in, everybody. Let's say hello to those of us joining us here in the chat room. We've got Darren Gilholm, Eddie Casanova saying hello. There's Gary Tatum, who also renews his membership, now a member for 36 months. He says he got his 3-year badge, and it doesn't seem that long ago. Yeah, no, I know. Nice to be a member of such a great community. Thank you, Gary. Mark Baggett says hello, and John says hello. There's David Graham and Scott, Craig Wilson. Our friend Buster joining us from Scotland with a 10-pound super chat. Hello, Carey and Mara and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland. Temperature in Edinburgh, 52 degrees Fahrenheit or 11 degrees Celsius. Ooh, that still sounds a little chilly over there. I would like that. James Carter says hello. Lawrence Pierre says hello. Lorna Dro joining us along with Doman 2000. I also see Ben Laird from Scotland joining us, and John Lewis from Brazil says hello. Mark Gaines from Northern Ireland says hello. I also see Richard DeFries from Ireland, right? It's Ireland? Says hello. And Gil Garcia, Patrick T. There's Davis Parsons, now a member for 36 months. This is awesome. I think you're the 4th or 5th member I've seen so far at the 36 mark, which is just wow. Thank you so much for your dedication, your loyalty to this community and the channel. Wow. Who'd have thunk? John Williams reminds us it is Patch Tuesday today. Oh, I haven't checked, but I suppose the second Tuesday of the month. It's not just Taco Tuesday, it's Patch Tuesday. Patching tacos? I'm not sure. Thomas MacT says hello. Good Tuesday to you, Carey, Mara, and members in the chat. Everyone in the chat. 81 degrees here in St. Petersburg, Florida. That doesn't sound too bad. David Graham says it sounds like war drums. It is war. With the construction on this place, it's flat out war. Yeah. Trying to undo all the bad is it's a chore. I'm glad I'm not the one doing it. Charlie Purdy says hello. Welcome in, Charlie. Jose Lopez joins us as well. And Mecca Cameron saying hello. And yeah, let me tell you a little bit about this. This box doesn't really tell us anything about this computer. I've been going on about how we're getting close to the $100 mini PC, budget mini PC that's actually good. And we're not there yet, but we're getting close. And well, let me just show you what we've got here. The link for this mini PC is in our video notes, of course. And what we're going to be looking at today seems really promising to me. It's an N150, right? So we're at an entry-level budget machine, which has not 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gig SSD, which is what we're often seeing in those $130 mini PCs, which I'm saying, hey, for 125, 130 bucks, it's a really good deal with Windows 11 already installed. But here they're doubling the RAM. So you're getting 16 gigs and they're doubling the storage. So you're getting 512 gig. It's a 1 gig network connection. It's an older Wi-Fi standard, just Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 4.2. And there is a $10 coupon that brings that price to $139.99. So just a few dollars more to double the RAM and storage sounds like a bargain to me.
Yeah.
And I've already got to check email, Mara tells me. Okay, well, let's jump back over here to camera 1. But you'll see why I think this holds a lot of promise to be a really good value, because you're getting, usually on the budget machines, you're getting half the RAM and half the storage at that $125 price. And that's what I would expect when we eventually get down to the $100 price. But for about 10 bucks more, $15 more to double the RAM and storage, bargain. Also, the N150 can only take so much RAM anyway, so it's not like you should be concerned about, oh, it needs to have more RAM. No, no, no. The N150, I think, is limited to 16 gigs, if I'm not mistaken. So these are budget machines, and keep that in mind and set your expectations accordingly. The email, let me check email. Oh, our friend Mark Gaines with an Amazon gift card of 100 bucks. Right on. Well, thank you as always. Cheers to Mark Gaines in Northern Ireland, because, well, I want to say it like he would say it. Cheers. Slancha. Thank you. Right on. Let's get this unboxed. Let's see what we got in here. As you'll see, everything is shrink wrapped. If you're new here, I do everything live, unscripted. Everything you see is real. And you know, sometimes people ask, how often do I get dead on arrival products, stuff like that. Well, we do it all live here, and it's pretty rare we ever see anything arrive damaged or not working. If you're lucky, you'll catch it. It'll happen once every 3 or 4 years. So, all right, let's see if we can get this thing unboxed and see if it performs as good as it should, as good as I think it should. We'll check its build quality, fan noise. Once again, it doesn't bother me that this has an older Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, because we're at a budget system that couldn't keep up with Wi-Fi 7 anyway. You're not likely going to have a $1,000 router hooked up to a $100 PC, any more than you're likely not going to have a big screen TV and then, you know, not have some cable service or satellite service or streaming service running to it. You're likely not just putting an antenna on the roof. You might be. It's just not likely. So, you know, we pair things up accordingly. And for a lot of people, I would say even most home users and a lot of business users, this is what you need to do all your everyday work. Now, for your entertainment and gaming, entertainment has always been expensive. Gaming has always been expensive. So, you know, that can be accommodated with a deeper wallet. Let's see what we've got in the box. Got some documentation. And, oh, wow, this is super thin. Wow. Here is the mini PC. Let's see if I can get you a close-up over here. I think I got to get used to doing it this way. Yeah, that's going to work. Look how thin that is. Looks like easy access to the underside of it, which I don't recommend you guys upgrade these. They're pretty much ready to roll as they come out of the box. If you want something you can modify, I would suggest a higher-end machine. You do get some warnings that are becoming standard now, blocking the Ethernet port and the top of the unit that are meant to be peeled off. And they're just basically letting you know that, well, here, I'll just read it to you. Let's go back over here. Okay, quick setting button description. Press delete to enter the BIOS. Press F7 to enter the boot options menu. The BIOS settings are risky and unauthorized alterations may cause the computer to fail to boot. So, you know, if you don't know what you're doing, stay out of there. There's no reason for anybody to go in there who's just like exploring, unless you're willing to risk having your computer not boot anymore. Please tear off this label before using the product. Okay. And then the one on the back covering the Ethernet port says, to set up more quickly, avoid using Wi-Fi or LAN initially. The connection may trigger prolonged updates, causing delays in desktop access. I agree with this 100%. We'll peel that label off. We've got 2 HDMI ports back here. A lot of people, home users in particular, they don't know what a display port is. They don't understand they can buy an adapter, or they just don't want to, or they say they don't have any money for it. So you've got 2 HDMI outs, which I think is a welcome thing for most people in this budget line. You've got 2 USB ports back here with a 1 gig LAN connection. And up front, we've got a Type-C, which is pretty unusual to find on a budget computer. And that's going to be USB 3, and then 2 USB 3s up front. I think these are USB 2s in the back. We can go back and look at the description to verify that. My only concern when I see computers that thin is sometimes the fans can get loud in machines that thin. However, we have to test it to see. I am hopeful as the technology continues to evolve, they keep getting better and better with cooling. So the idea of getting a machine with a loud fan seems less likely today than it was last year or years before, but we still need to test each one just to verify. So that's part of the point of today's video. Underneath this, we have just a little cardboard, kind of a fake floor there. And underneath that, we have our power brick. We have an HDMI cable. We have some kind of quality control label, which I don't know who that's for. We've got a VESA mount, so that's to mount back behind the unit so that you can then mount the unit underneath a desk, on a wall, behind your monitor if you wanted to hide it. I don't use these personally, but they're there for people who want to use them. And then also the screws that are necessary to mount the VESA mount to the PC. And then I suppose you could use the other screws for mounting, depending what you're mounting to, like the back of a monitor. The included screws are for that. Mounting to a wall or something else, you'll need a different kind of a screw for that. But that's all there is in the box, so it's pretty basic, which is how they're keeping that price so low. Now, the other thing that keeps the price low is giving us a wall wart power adapter versus more of a fancier laptop power adapter. So the pros and the cons on these adapters are, this is going to hog up the plugs on each side of it, and it may limit how many plugs you can put onto your surge protector, versus a regular laptop power brick would have a separate power cord. That's just a normal lamp cord that wouldn't take up any more space. And also, depending on how your surge protector is set up or how you're plugging it in, this could block access to even just a second port. So in other words, if I have 2 plugs on the wall and I plug this into the top plug, I'll be blocking the bottom plug. I can't use it. If I move this to the bottom plug, I mean, it's not rocket science, but just keep that in mind. It's sort of conditioned on where you're going to plug it in because of its shape. Now, it's not a really high power adapter because these budget machines, they don't require a lot of power to begin with. But let me just pull out my glasses and we'll see what the wattage is on this. It looks like it's 1 amp maximum. It'll output 12 volts at 3 amps. So it's, you know, I don't think this is going to draw 3 amps, but quite frankly, it's one of the benefits of these is how power friendly they are with regards to power consumption. If you care about the ecology and you want low power devices, or you want to keep your electric bill lower, get rid of that big desktop and go with something smaller like this. So the other downside of these power adapters is, unlike a laptop power brick, which we sometimes see with mini PCs, where you basically have a power brick with a cable that goes to the mini PC and then a separate power cable that plugs from the brick to the wall. This is all one piece. There's no replaceable cable, and the cable is going to be shorter than 2 cables. And again, that saves you money. There's less cost. So we're probably looking at about a 5 foot, no, not even 5 feet, I think, maybe 4 foot cable. So that limits how far you can run this cable. Now, obviously, you can buy an extension cable, plug it in here, and then run the extension cable. That's probably the one downside on the budget mini PCs that I can really come up with. That's my biggest complaint, is I would love to see a cable that's 8 feet long rather than 4 feet long. If they did that, they would have to raise the price. However, wouldn't have to raise it by that much. All right, let's get the standard barrel power jack plugged in here. Also, it doesn't say Peladin anywhere on the power brick. You don't want to mix this power brick up with another one. You can cause damage to the device. If you plug the wrong power brick into it, you can cause damage to the power brick. So what I'll do is get a label maker and I'll write whatever the manufacturer is, Peladin, or grab a silver Sharpie permanent marker and just hand write it on there. And the reason for that is, well, yes, you're hooking it all up today. What happens when you move? What happens when somebody else comes in and moves things around, and now you don't know where this goes? You don't want to plug it in to find out. That's a real hard way to figure it out. So one other improvement I would suggest for all mini PC makers, or anybody that has a power adapter, is to put their name on the power adapter. Again, this is not a problem you're going to have today. It's a problem you have later in the future. And it's especially true when you're moving. And then things get bundled into a box and this gets separated. And now you've got multiple items that this can fit into and will burn out all but one of them likely. So that's pretty important. And I would definitely do it before you need to. Now, the question I have is, how am I going to plug this in with the cable so short? My surge protector's on the floor. So I'm going to have to move this all the way to the edge of the desk. And then I should be able to reach that. Oh, gosh. Yeah, that's awfully short. Like I am right at my limit right there. That's as far as that cable goes from the floor to the desk. I mean, that's 4 feet. That's it. We're out of cable. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to keep this at the edge of the desk. Otherwise, I'm going to have to get an extension or have to move things around. And I just, because we're live, I want to keep this moving. We're going to grab our keyboard and our mouse. This is just a single wireless dongle. We'll use the USB 2 ports in the back here because putting a faster, plugging the USB dongle for the keyboard or mouse into a faster USB port isn't going to make you type any faster. So save those for flash drives or external drives or things where the performance of USB 3 matters to you. And then utilize those USB 2 ports where you're not going to benefit or regret, rather, using the wrong ports because you run out of high-speed ports. And that's why they're there. And again, this helps keep costs down. It's also a limitation of the N150 CPU. Now I need, so we're not plugging in networking. We're not doing anything, but we're going to fire it up and go through the out-of-box experience. And for that, I need an HDMI cable, so we'll find one down here. Here we go. And either HDMI plug should work, doesn't matter which one. And now I'm going to turn this on. Blue light comes on right there. You guys can see that. And we'll go to the window capture, which is over here. Well, not window capture. I need HDMI 3. I see what I did. There it goes. So here's our very first boot. And by the way, I hear nothing. I hear no fan at all. So that's a good sign. I'm glad we're starting that way. Move some things out of the way here. Okay. Full screen over here so I can see it.
Tanya, we need like a red light, blue light, email.
Oh, we got another email?
Yeah.
All right, let me check it in a moment here. Let's go through our out-of-box experience. So English US, yes. And then what else? United States, yes. Is this the right keyboard? Yes. Do we want a secondary keyboard layout? No. Now it wants to connect us, and I don't want to connect yet, so I'm going to click I don't have internet, and I love that Peladin has already set the bypass NRO for us here. So continue with limited setup tells it twice that we don't want to connect it to the network yet, or that will force us to get updates, which could take a while. It'll also force us to create a Microsoft account, which I don't use and I wouldn't use on client computers. I don't want my accounts, even the history of my accounts, on a client computer. So I treat all of these reviews as though they're other people's computers, because they're not mine. And I like to keep them as clean as possible on an install, as though I'm setting up a custom built computer for somebody else. I always consistently do it the same unless it's my computer. Since this is not my computer, I don't treat it like it's my computer. Now, this is going to go through those final steps. It should ask us for a username here coming up. And so far, everything we're seeing is the same as you would see on a clean Windows 11 install if you did it yourself so far. And I hope that doesn't change. Let's find out. Oh, look, it wants to connect us to a network again. That's really bizarre. I'm going to say I don't have network. Tell it twice. Now there's the license agreement. I hit accept. And then I'll put the username in of user, and I'll leave the password blank so it boots right into the desktop. I leave location settings on. That'll keep my date and time always set accurately. And I also like to do Google searches of things near me, and I don't have to specify where I am if I leave location settings on. It's just like a phone. It's more convenient. And all of these settings, again, since it's not my computer, a customer could set those any way they want them. It's reversible. It's all in the control panel or in the settings section of Windows 11. And yeah, we're going to go through the final setup phase here that says it might take a few minutes. And while we're waiting, I guess I'll check that email right now. Let's see what we got. Oh, our friend Charlie Purdy with an Amazon gift card. He says this is for the channel and the community, and is a generous Amazon gift card. Thank you, as always, Charlie, for sure. In fact, I ran out of Amazon gift card money about 2 days ago, so your timing couldn't be better. There's a few things I'm looking at potentially for future content that I'm just postponing for two reasons. One, I have enough content for right now, and two, there's no Amazon. Well, until a few moments ago, we didn't have any Amazon gift card money left. So I thought maybe these two things will come together, give it a few days. And Charlie and Mark Gaines come to the rescue. Charlie Purdy and Mark Gaines come to the rescue with some support there. Thank you very much, guys. Now that we're at the desktop, which you'll notice all of these icons are shaded out, that's going to auto-fill in here in the USA when I plug into the network. If you're in a different country or region in the EU, for example, that may stay empty. It kind of depends on what your local laws are. And so for that reason, it doesn't always set up exactly the same around the world. But here in the US, once I plug my internet in, which I'm doing right now, we should begin to see that little globe down here become a little PC in just a moment. And then when that happens, we should then see, yeah, all of these populate. And for things like, you know, Xbox, I just uninstall this stuff right quick. It only takes 2 seconds. If I see anything else I don't want, like this Microsoft Office trial thing, I get rid of that. And this Outlook I find useless, so I get rid of that. And once again, any of this stuff can be re-downloaded or re-added back to the Windows install since it was there to begin with. A customer could put that back, but I've never asked anybody, I've never had anybody ask me to put LinkedIn back on. So I just get rid of those right quick, and I'm tired of people calling that bloatware, because you see, bloatware would take us, you know, at least 5 minutes to uninstall each one piece of bloatware. I just removed 4 pieces of unwanted items that are just shortcuts. They're very easy to remove, and they take seconds. Let's go to our desktop display settings, because I think we're in 4K. Everything looks really tiny to me. Yeah, we are in 4K. Whoops, that's not what I want. I want 1920 by 1080, which is all the way 1920 by 1080 right there. Okay, keep those changes. And then let's go to Windows updates, because that's going to take a while. So let's just get the Windows updates started. And while they're checking, I'm going to turn on to get updates automatically and go to advanced options and turn on this, this, and this. And you can pause the screen and go back if you want to read each item if you're new here. And then over here, I'm going to just type in search permissions. Usually you don't even have to type the whole thing before the suggestion that I want pops right up at the top. I click on that because I want to get rid of this little cartoon thing. It drives me crazy. Scroll down under more settings, turn that off. Now don't worry if we close this, Windows Updates is still running in the background. I want to check our power settings to make sure the machine doesn't go to sleep on us while we're working. So I'll just type in power edit or edit power. You'll see the suggestion pops up. And sure enough, this was going to turn off the display after 5 minutes. Would be kind of embarrassing during the broadcast. And since this doesn't have batteries, there's never a reason to put it to sleep. Save those changes. As I mentioned, in the background, we're still downloading Windows Updates, whether we like it or not. And if we want to see how it's progressing, just go back over to Settings and back over to Windows Update. One of several ways to get to Windows Update, and you'll see it's been progressing along in the background. Regardless if we close this window or not, it's still running in the background. So we can come down here, for example, and type in update and check for updates. Pops up as a suggestion, and you'll see it's been running the whole time. All right, so with that, let me go over here to camera 1 and then put myself in a corner so we can kind of keep an eye on it so we know when to reboot. And the other thing is, I'm not hearing any fan at all. I'm still, it's there, it's barely there. That's impressive considering just how thin this is. So we'll see when we run some more tests on it how loud it can get, but right out of the gate, you can barely notice it at all. That's a good sign. Now, you're not going to have a ton of USB ports on this. You're not going to have a ton of bells, whistles, and features. You're at a budget price here. And furthermore, maybe the best deal I've seen on PCs in a while, because the doubling of the RAM and storage space for just a few dollars more than what we're seeing as the absolute cheapest. The absolute cheapest, by the way, that I'm seeing is about $119 also from Peladin. So this isn't, what is this, $20 more? Maybe $25 more. That more than pays for the extra RAM and extra storage easily. So that's a no-brainer from my perspective. Anything more than 16 gigs of RAM on an N-series chip is a waste of your money, in my opinion. And in fact, for most people, anything more than 16 gigs of RAM, they're not using it anyway. I see people installing 64 gigs, 96 gigs, 128 gigs. They're not using it. They're not using it. So if you have something you're not using, it's the same as not having it. I don't know how else to explain this to you. It's your money, and if it makes you feel good, go buy it. But when you want practical, pragmatic, technical advice for a decent, well-built computer that's not going to break the bank, that isn't overkill for your needs, that you're never going to grow into, these budget mini PCs are reliable. The ones we're featuring here, like Peladin, they have great support, they have drivers, everything you need. And of course, we're always here to help you if you have any issues. Our community is wonderful. They love helping each other out. If you're not joining us in our live chat during these live videos, you're probably not getting this video. A lot of people will watch these videos and they just don't get it. And it's like, well, that's because you're not joining us in the chat. These are community videos. Community doesn't work if you're just a spectator. Join us. Pop in, say hello. Just don't be a jerk. That's all we ask. It costs you nothing. We love to see more like-minded individuals in our community, and we've got room for so many more. We'd love for you to pop in and say hello. Tell us where you're watching us from, and just watch the magic that happens in the chat room. You don't have to be a social person. You could be socially awkward and uncomfortable. No one can tell. All you have to do is go into the live chat while we're live and say, hello, I'm watching you from Florida or England, whatever. That's it. And then watch what happens. Everything just happens naturally. But pop in and be a jerk, you'll find a very different experience. All right. So while that's downloading these updates, I did want to check, before it's too late to see what version of Windows they've given us here. It should be 24H2. Let's take a look. Right click on the start button. Am I full screen over here? Yeah, that should be fine. Right click on the start button, we'll go to System. And under System, it says we have an Intel N150, 16 gigs of RAM. Oh, it's Windows 11 Pro. All right, that's one question. Is it Home or Pro? And we are a version of Windows behind at 23H2. So this is probably, I've got to guess, a model from last year. That would explain the discounted price. And then you'll see the manufacturer's name in there and website. You won't find this on cheaper made PCs from, like AliExpress. It's all generally unchanged information from the default. That's if you installed Windows yourself, and you usually don't get any support from them, from most of the sellers on AliExpress, in my experience. So we are going to have to put 24H2 on this. This is going to take a while, so plan accordingly, and make sure you get all these updates and everything done first before you start customizing it with your printer and your email and your programs. Don't start that. Wait until you get the basic foundation set up and ensure everything is working properly. We have a 30-day return if you buy this from Amazon, and you can return the unit for any reason. You changed your mind is also a fair reason. You can return it for free and get a full refund. So if you're at all curious about these mini PCs, if you think I'm exaggerating about how good they are, decide for yourself, because that's the only way you're ever gonna know. Now, likely what's happening is we're getting a video driver installed. I think that's why the screen blanked out like that. And you'll often see that with updates. And if you wonder why that happens, that's usually a video driver. So that's a good thing. We want to see that. Let's look in the device manager, and let's take a look here at just the state of the devices. Is any drivers missing, etc. As we can see, everything looks good here, and let's go to the network adapters and see what we've got in here. So the wired and wireless LAN are both made by Realtek. That's awesome. I really like that they're both made by the same company. It just keeps things simpler if you ever have to do a reinstall. Realtek also provides drivers individually, so you're not locked in like with MediaTek to only get your drivers from the manufacturer who may not be updating them. So I love that that's an option, and I love that they're both the same, so you don't have to remember which manufacturer makes my LAN versus which manufacturer makes my wireless LAN adapter. And so that's a good thing. Also, if we check our secure boot status, right? We've been checking that lately. We type in MS info. Let's see if this comes with secure boot turned on. Secure boot is not turned on. So by default, this should be on, and I strongly recommend that you check your machine if you're running Windows 11, or even for that matter, Windows 10. And have this turned on for security reasons. This is going to get more and more important every day as the loser hackers on the internet that are so ignorant and stupid they can't get a real job will try and steal from you in the easiest way possible. And secure boot state being off will eventually become an easy way to get in. So best to lock that door now rather than wait until you're pushing the door back against somebody trying to break in. All right, so that's just good, solid security practice, and it's free, and I'll show you how to do it here when we're done with our updates, which are progressing along nicely. Right now, these are all updates to 23H2 that it wants as a prerequisite. Whether or not you can just jump right over that and go to 24H2 with your own media, I wouldn't recommend it. Just go through the process the way Microsoft intends, and you should have the experience that Microsoft intends. If you want to take shortcuts, it might work for you, but if it doesn't, you have yourself to blame. It's sort of like speeding, so you can get to where you're going faster, only to get pulled over by a police officer and have to sit for 20 minutes at the side of the road where the ticket is written. Trust me, you weren't going to get anywhere 20 minutes faster by speeding unless you're traveling 1,000 miles or more. It makes only seconds of difference. So sometimes slow and steady is going to win the race much more than just trying to speed your way through from start to finish. Slow and steady, tortoise and the hare. It's an old adage that remains true to this day, especially when you've got something brand new, you're trying to familiarize yourself with it. Do not assume that everything's fine. Be skeptical and verify. Once everything checks out, in other words, once we get all our updates installed, 24H2 is in there, everything in the device manager looks good, we're not getting any blue screens, everything is now verified as fine, then install your printer, install your email, whatever order you want, install your programs. Do them one at a time, because when you reboot your computer, if suddenly now it's crashing when it wasn't before, it's something you just did. And if you just did 3 things because you're too impatient, and now it doesn't reboot right, or it has an error, now it's one of those 3 things. But if you do one thing at a time, it's slower, but if you have a problem, it's faster to know exactly what the problem is. If you don't have a problem, then you say, well, it took longer. Okay, but because it's an unfamiliar computer and you are still getting to know it, if it's my decision and I'm the one setting it up, that's how I do it, because I don't want to roll the dice to determine how long I'm going to need to set up your computer. I know exactly, I have not exactly, but I have a really good idea of how long it takes to install things to customize a computer, brand new computer for a client. And that's assuming we reboot after every change. That's built into the time. But if I'm trying to take a shortcut because I'm too impatient, I'm too intolerant, and I think I'm smarter than everyone else, or I just like to gamble, that's your time, all right? Because if it works out for you, I'm happy for you. But if it doesn't work out for you, I'm glad I'm not you, because you're going to be in for a lot of work for an undetermined amount of time. Could be days. You could end up being so frustrated that you want to send the unit back, even though you're the one who caused it. So you do you, but I'm just telling you, there's a method to my madness where you might say, well, that's really tedious to have to reboot every time. No, what's really tedious is when you try and do everything at once and you put the cart before the horse, and then something bad happens. If nothing bad happens, you're good to go. But if something bad happens, boy, you're going to be in for it. So you choose accordingly. It's your machine. But that's why I do it this way. It's always going to be the same for me. And it's not rolling the dice where maybe it will be and maybe it won't. I can't go with maybes. I can't run my business on maybes. I wish I could, but I'd be out of business. I guarantee it. All right, let me jump over to the chat and see what you guys have to say while we're waiting here for these updates to install. Patrick says, unfortunately, my Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on my desktop port is MediaTek. But thankfully, I use a wired 2.5 gig the most. Well, you can get a USB network interface card and plug it in. They have them as USB Wi-Fi 7 now. But even that's probably overkill. But just plug it in like a flash drive. And then you can leave your other Wi-Fi enabled if you want to and have 2 Wi-Fi. Just don't use one. Or you can go into Device Manager and disable the internal Wi-Fi adapter. It's not expensive. They're like 20 bucks, 30 bucks for an inexpensive Wi-Fi 6. And then you get up towards around twice that for Wi-Fi 7. It's really not a big deal. John says he just had his monthly updates, and I guess he says no. I'm guessing no issues. I don't normally see issues with Windows updates. You only hear about that online. You don't really hear about that in person. Let's see. Frank Jimmy joins us, says hello. There's Mark Leibowitz out of Chicago saying hello. Christian Lunder says, hey, chat, another stream. Yeah, hey, Christian. Thanks for joining us. Lou Greenia says hello. He says dinner's done and the dishes can wait. All right. She's got you trained. You make a good wife. I kid. Everybody should equally share the chores. Shamim says hello, joining us from Sweden. And see, what else am I missing here? Frank Jimmy said, Frank Jimmy's in the house. Greetings, Uncle Carey and Auntie Marlena, and all in chat from sunny 88°F, Florida. Right on. Lots of folks from Florida here today. John Paul Bacon says hello. Rajan Guy says hello. Barry Klein says hello. Ghostly Lurker joining us. Dwayne Blackwelder renews membership, now a member for 30 months. He says, hey, chat, just now getting a chance to jump in. Thank you, Dwayne. Good to see you. Thank you for renewing your membership, too, of course. Marsman50 says, afternoon all from Coleman, Wisconsin, where it is 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Martin Erickson says, wall warts can't handle as much power as a brick-type power supply. Yeah, that's true, too, but you don't need that, you know. I don't need off-road tires on a sports car. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. One kind of goes hand in hand with the other. And, you know, we do see lower power machines sometimes with that laptop style power brick, like those HP Elite Minis. They all have external power bricks. They're only, some of them are just 35 watts. So it's not a universal truth that you've got to go to away from a wall wart because it's low power. It's a choice. But yes, if it's higher power, that would be a lot to try and cram into a wall wart. But those are for higher end machines. I'm just getting caught up in the chat here, so bear with me for a second. John Paul Bacon said, after getting Windows 11 installed on my PC, I've been having random problems. First thing I always check is the RAM. That memtest 86, the very first place I'm going to go if I'm you. The other thing is if you have any USB devices plugged in, like external drives or printers, I unplug all those so that you're just down to the basics. Just a keyboard, mouse, monitor, and internet. And then see if, when you run memtest 86, see if your memory passes, because that's usually what the problem is. Not always, but usually. Oh, Luke says the wife just had her second knee replacement, so that's why he's doing all the cooking and cleaning. Is that what it takes to get you to cook and clean? Somebody's got to have surgery? I'm just teasing you. Well, hopefully she'll heal up fast and get back to kicking you in the butt once that knee is healed up. I don't know. That's what mine does. Let's see. How are we doing over here? Still installing. Very good. I'm still not hearing any fan noise, which is also good. Patrick Nanny said it's a busy update Tuesday. You know, I haven't even checked it myself. Let me look here on the streamer, see how many updates it's waiting for it. I mean, there's only two. It says there's a cumulative update and a malicious, the Windows malicious software removal tool is all I see. So let me install those on the streamer, and I just won't let it reboot. At least not on purpose. So we'll do that. And I know anything that says cumulative update is going to be a while. So that can run in the background here, and it'll let me know when it's done. And you know, the red and black streamer that we're using is a pretty high-end, you know, 7850 X3D. As things a rocket ship. So yeah, we'll let that install, and then I'll just tell it to restart later. Then I don't have to forget about doing it. John Williams wants to know how Jimmy, the German Shepherd, is doing over at Studio A. Oh, he's doing great. Yeah, I mean, he's getting older, so, you know, he has the older issues that typically big dogs deal with hips and joints and things like that. But he's a happy dog, and he's doing really well. Thank you for asking. wow, this streamer is fast. It's already 33% through that cumulative update. It's chewing through that pretty quick. Now, I don't know if those are updates from today or if those are updates from a couple days ago, but I won't know that until after the update's installed. It'll have to restart, and then we can check for updates again. But obviously, I'm not going to restart during a live stream, so I just won't know until after the stream if there's more updates after that. While we're waiting, let's go back over to the Amazon page here because I want to show you something. So looking back at this computer now, upgraded N150 processor, 4 cores, 4 threads. So there's no hyper-threading on this. TDP of up to 15 watts. That's why it's so quiet. It's got 15% better overall performance and 15 to 20% faster than the N95. When you get into the N95, N97, you can have better internal graphics, more powerful, but it's also using more power. Some people prefer the N95 or N97 over the N100 or 150 for that reason. You consume more power and the onboard video is slightly better. You're still not, it's still not a gaming machine, but for some people it matters. So if you're one of those people, just FYI, don't turn your nose up because you see N95 or N97 thinking, well, it's older and therefore not as desirable. Some people find it more desirable because it uses more power. Most people don't, but it does say, built in 1 slot for RAM because the N series chips do not support dual channel memory. And they are limited with how much memory you can put in. It is compatible with Linux. If you want to make it into a firewall, like a soft router, etc., you can do that. It's got PXE boot. Wake on LAN is an option. It says the dual band Wi-Fi is fast, but I guess that's still Wi-Fi 5. So depending if you're using anything older than Wi-Fi 5, then I suppose the Wi-Fi 5 would seem fast to you. But it's fine, especially for a system like this. You can support, or this machine rather, can support 3 displays simultaneously using the 2 HDMI ports and then the Type-C port, which is a 10 gig port, which will allow you to connect that to another monitor. So you can have 3 displays all running at the same time for this little guy. The Type-C is USB 3.2, supports DisplayPort 1.4 output, and has a power delivery input, which means we could, in theory, power this entire computer from a monitor that supports USB Type-C power delivery. At the same time, also output video to the monitor, all using 1 cable. The cooling fan is a dual turbo copper tube design that effectively reduces heat and noise. Well, this is true. Like I'm not hearing it. And what do we have for reviews on this bad boy? Your audio jack is in the front, no audio jack in the back. A couple other models they make here at varying price points. You see this 5095, that's $119.99, 120 bucks. It's basically, it looks like the same exact case. It's using an older 11th gen N5095, which is still Windows 11 compatible. It's only gonna, still Wi-Fi 5 and Bluetooth 4.2. You've got to increase your price if you want to increase your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth versions and your CPU to go to a Ryzen 5, for example, which would be fine for some gaming, particularly retro gaming or esports games probably run fine on that, much better than on an Intel chip. Now, looking at reviews, we've got 19 ratings, averaging 4.4 out of 5 stars. This person just says, I love it. Okay, well, that's not very specific. Mini computer's great. Oh, this person got a free one. The Amazon Vine program is something you get invited to. If you leave a lot of Amazon reviews, Amazon notices and will probably send you an invite to join, but you cannot apply for it. And if you don't leave many reviews, you're never going to get invited. I've never been invited, but that's all right. Let's see. Mini PC is great. Configuration is really good for today's computer usage. The compactness is the key for me to get this selected, really smaller than what I had. I like that they have, I like the ways they have provided a feature to install it on the monitor, the BISA bracket, or just place it on the table. It has all necessary ports like USB, USB-C, and my usage of the USB ports on the rear are really tighter than the front one. I really appreciate the idea of having the USB-C, which is missing on all of my computers, and today that's the port needed most of all. Computer speed is good, 16 gigs, no complaints. I've started loading apps. So far, it's fast. I hope it'll keep up. The hard drive, well, it's a solid state drive, but not a hard drive. It's 500 gigs, which is good. And he uses external drives for the rest. The operating system's Windows 11 Pro. And fits the budget. Kids can use it for learning. Yeah. So just a good overall general use. Again, a very limited review here. Very limited. Everything was in Chinese when I fired it up. No instructions on how to change. Well, that seems like there was a mistake there. That wasn't that long ago either. So that's unusual. We did not have that experience. Also, pay attention to what they're reviewing. If there's multiple models listed on an Amazon page, you might see reviews for different models all on the same page, and that's why it'll be specified right underneath the review what they're reviewing. Someone else, an Amazon Vine customer that got it for free, they liked it. Another person who got it for free liked it. Another person who got it for free gave it 4 out of 5 stars. So it's, I don't know, when I see the free reviews, I'm glad that Amazon is transparent in letting us know. But I wonder if their attitude would change if they spent their own hard-earned cash. The benefit is it's not that expensive. So I don't know how demanding someone would have to be. But overall and in general, when I see the Vine reviews, I always take them with a grain of salt. We did receive the unit for free, by the way, not to be a hypocrite. But I do like to think that I do the review the same regardless. If I don't like it, I'm going to tell you I don't like it. And if that means they won't send me any more for free, then so be it. I don't want to see them anyway. In other words, if I don't like it, for whatever reason, I'm not sure I would be that eager to just check more of a company's products I don't like. And they may not be so eager to send me any more units if they're not getting good feedback, or good, this is marketing money. They wouldn't spend their marketing money to have somebody tell them not to buy the product. So they'd be less inclined to send me a free product. I'd be less inclined to want to review it. But somebody who's reviewing in order to get a free product, they might be incentivized to not lose the future free stuff. You know what I mean? Like they might hold back the review, maybe. So for that reason, I never quite know the motivation of the person writing a review who gets a product for free. So I always take it with a grain of salt. You're probably going to see more 5-star reviews in general on Amazon Vine reviews than you will ever see of any other rating. So they only send good products out for free. Is that how? Just something to think about. Let me get back over to the chat room here. The Greenie said I should have an email inbound. Right on. Lana Dro says, I don't even remember what my mini PC is, but I use the heck out of it. Let's take a look. Do I have anything here? Not yet. Got to remind me to check that. Kevin McNeil in the chat wants to know, do you prefer a PCIe card or external USB capture card? Is USB speed enough for reliable capture card operation? Well, I have multiple camera inputs, right? So you're not just talking with somebody with a capture card. But what I've got is a 4-port HDMI 4 input, 4K each input for a total of 32K input bandwidth. That can't be done through USB. As far as I know, no such thing exists. Maybe Thunderbolt, but I'm not aware of one, and it would be very expensive. If you're just wanting to capture video, any capture card should be fine for you. Whether it's internal or external really doesn't make a difference. If you're broadcasting in 4K, you just need to make sure you've got a 4K capture card. And you've got to make sure that it's more than just 4K pass-through, that it'll actually encode 4K. That's going to cost you more money. Whether it's internal or external, there's not much price difference. But I need either 4 capture cards going through 4 USB ports, which gets messy and can really clog up the USB lanes, versus a PCIe card that can handle all 4 channels through the PCIe bus. So there's not a universal answer here for me to offer you, only to tell you that I personally use an internal PCIe card because it's the only way I can get 4 4K HDMI inputs into the computer for camera 1, camera 2, HDMI out, and camera 4. What do I use camera for? That was the, is it the close-up camera? Yeah, I had a left camera, I had a center camera, I have the HDMI output, and then sometimes back at Studio B, we'd have the handheld camera for Mara to walk around and film those close-ups, which there's no place to walk around in here right now. So we're not using one of the 4 ports, but we will get to it. But yes, they would not sell a capture card that plugged into USB where the USB couldn't keep up with it. Like, how would you sell any units? After you sold a few, it pissed off enough people who left negative reviews, the thing doesn't work. You're probably not going to have a business very much longer. So do read the reviews, because if you're not familiar with the brand, it may be junk. But usually those brands don't stick around very long. Stick with Logitech, or EVGA has theirs. Elgato, which is Logitech, right? Whereas Elgato Corsair. I can't remember anymore. Companies buying companies, but if you stick with a name brand and look at the reviews, you can't really go wrong. And also it depends how you want to use it. Are you trying to plug in a camera? Are you trying to plug in a computer? Or you want to plug in a game console and you want to play games and Twitch stream out to it as you're gaming? All these different hardware exists to meet the needs of the individual. It's like when you go to buy a car. You want a minivan? You want a pickup truck? Do you need to tow? Do you need to go off-road? Do you want an electric vehicle? You want a 2-seater? You need a 4-door sedan? Maybe you need an SUV? Do you want a hybrid? Do you want electric? I mean, it goes on and on and on. So when you look to see which car should I buy, we really have to understand how much money do you have to spend and what do you need it for. And any of those could be selected for your individual needs as a recommendation. But just asking in general, there's no answer I can give to you. I'll tell you what I have for the reasons I have it, just if you're curious, but I don't think that's going to be beneficial to help you. Let's see. Getting back over to the chat. And by the way, thank you, Kevin, for the question. Nick Poverman said, hey, there's another mini PC. It'd be perfect for a middle school student or to hook up to your television. Yes, yeah, it's absolutely quiet. So is an HT PC, and throw Plex on it, or just VLC for that matter, and I'll put it right with a keyboard and mouse. You're good to go. But also, I think most consumers, when I go to a consumer's, when I work on a consumer's computer, many of them are very old. Not the consumers, the computers. And these little $100, $140 boxes are far superior. They're more powerful. They generally are better equipped. They take up less space. They use less power. And the problem I'm running into in the real world is people dismiss these as being too weak. And the only people who will dismiss a mini computer in general is someone who's never used one. So you can be as skeptical as you want, and I encourage your skepticism. And there's only one solution for it, and that's to buy one you think will meet whatever the needs are that you have, and buy accordingly. Just as there's different kinds of cars, there are different mini PCs, the budget line, the mid-grade, the higher end workstations, and then the gaming PCs, and they're priced accordingly in that order. So if you want a game, I hope you have the wallet and I hope you have the time. So they do make them. You're going to expect around a $1,200 starting price on a mini PC that can game, and you're looking at around $1,800 to $2,500, maybe even $3,000 on a traditional desktop tower if we're talking about a really powerful gaming PC. So be prepared and know what to expect, and it's pretty much the same across the board, whether we're talking mini PCs or laptops. Look at the price of a gaming laptop, for crying out loud, compared to an entry-level laptop that starts under $300. You could buy 4 or 5 entry-level laptops for the price of that one gaming laptop, and likely the battery life on those cheap ones is going to be much better. Value for dollar, you're getting a much better deal on the cheaper end. Value for dollar on gaming, well, there's a lot of profit in gaming and people pay it. This is how the industry works. I'm not opposed to you spending your money for a gaming machine, but I am opposed to you thinking you're going to get away with a $150 computer as though you're saving yourself $1,800. No, you can wish that all you want, but that is not how reality works. So do have reasonable expectations on what you're buying and what it can do, and you won't be disappointed. Nick Poverman said Corsair owns Elgato. There you go. Thank you, Nick. John Williams said he's got the Cyber Geek mini PC that we sent him, and he says it's fantastic, and thank you. We love hearing the follow-ups here. We love hearing from real users with real experience. I'm so sick and tired. If you're new here, I'm one of those people that I'm so tired of gossip and conjecture online. There's so much nonsense and people with nothing else better to do but to sit there and share stories of other people's experiences. Well, I read online that this is bad. Oh, well, then I guess it's bad. I read online I'm 10 feet tall and weigh 4,000 pounds. So I guess that's true too. But when you hear from somebody online that has their own experience, not somebody else's, that they're sharing, that is much more valuable to me. It's more interesting. It's not a waste of my time. Telling me that somebody else has a problem, you're wasting my time. And you probably don't even have the whole story, and you probably misinterpreted the story. So the minute you go to retell the story, it's already factually inaccurate. When it comes directly from the person affected, that's the information I cherish online. So if you have any experiences you want to share with us, good or bad, I'd love to hear from the actual person with the experience.
You have email.
And I have email. Okay, well, good timing since we're restarting right now. We'll check our email. Oh, Luke Greenia. A very generous Amazon gift card from our friend Luke. He says a little something to help replenish the channel funds. Wow. Thank you, Luke. And Buster. Buster also, wow, it's a generous day today, guys. He says, I hope you enjoy the Amazon gift card. Carey and Mara, your friend Buster. Right on. You guys rock. And of course, earlier, Charlie Purdy and Mark Gaines. Well, that should give me something to do later tonight as I squirrel around on Amazon. If you see something on Amazon you would like to see me review, let me know. Say, hey, what do you think of this? If it's something I can do, if it's within my purview or my experience, I'm happy for the ideas. If the idea is a little far-fetched for me to do, I'll just tell you, don't be discouraged. Just come up with another idea, all right? Why should I? Every time I give you an idea, you say no. Don't give up. I appreciate them. And I don't always say no. All right, so getting our reboot here with our first round of updates. I'm hoping when I recheck for updates, it will automatically offer us 24H2 on this next go around. Will in the chat wants to know if it's hard to build a PC on your own. We have over 200 PC build videos on this channel, step-by-step walkthroughs. And when I did it back in 2008 for the first time on YouTube, nobody else really showed all the details. There's a great channel called I can't think of the channel. Explaining Computers is a good channel, but not the one I was thinking of. This gentleman goes very slowly with every step of the process, explaining why you're going to do every step. So you don't have to have any foundational experience or information. You just follow along. This guy did such a great job with this, and his video's already got over 1 million views. And his video is right here. This guy right here, Nerd Sidekick. How to build a PC step by step, slow and easy computer build guide. And if you look, I've left a comment under this video where basically I'm saying this isn't just a guide, this is a full-on college course. And yeah, it's a master class. And now I feel like, you know, I've already done this so many times. When other people are stepping in and offering their unique process, and they're the ones putting the time and effort into how many retakes they have to do, the room and space they need to do it, the editing, the publishing, the titling, the thumbnails. Hey man, he did a great job here. And you're gonna see this video is almost 4 hours long, but you don't have to watch it like it's network TV. You can, you know, in 1982, where TV was basically scheduled TV. Show comes on at 7. If you missed it forever, right? It may never air again, or if it does, you'll never know when in the future it'll ever air again. So with something like this, if you feel like that's too long of a video, well, just watch until you're burned out or you had enough, and then come back when you're ready and continue. And you can continue to watch this in pieces, or do a marathon session and watch the whole thing. I mean, you can see at this point he's darn near got the whole thing built, doesn't he? Then he goes through the whole Windows process. This takes you through every step, and it's very, very simple. But if what you want is osmosis, where there's going to be no effort and no learning on your part, don't do it. Just pay somebody else to do it. You've got to enjoy the process of building it, and you've got to be patient. And in my opinion, you want that. You want that to last as long as possible, because you're going to want to build again. So savor it. Chew your food. If you really enjoy that steak, taste it. So if you are of that mindset where you think you would enjoy this, set aside enough time and have enough patience to take your time, go slowly, do it right. And this is the best video I can recommend to you on the internet right now. Better than mine, Nerd Sidekick. Once you've done it, then you'll say, wow, it really was easy. All right, looks like we've rebooted over here. So let's go back and check for more updates. Sometimes the previous updates are still installing after the reboot, so especially on a lower powered processor, and a very big update, it still may be 3 or 4 minutes once the computer restarts that updates are still happening. One way you can tell is if I go to the start button down here and I click on it and go to log off or restart, it may say update and restart. That's because the updates are still happening. It's not done yet. Even though it's letting you use the computer, the updates and restart are the previous updates that we've already installed. If we give that a minute and we check again, go back to the start menu, go back to the power button, see that went away? Now the update's actually finished. Now we can hit retry all up here and see if 24H2 gets offered to us. And I want you to know that's a universal way Windows Update works in Windows 11, and not to be surprised or worried that anything's wrong just simply because it took you back to the desktop. Don't assume those previous updates have finished. But if you hit that start button and you see that update and restart isn't there anymore, then you know they finished. Until they finish, you should expect it to take a little bit or be a little slower or less responsive. So just give it a couple minutes. It's usually not more than 2 or 3 minutes. Here we do see 11 24H2 is being downloaded and installed. And that's why I recommend just go through the natural process that Microsoft wants you to go through. You don't have to. But if you do, your chances of success are almost 100%. If you don't, it's anybody's guess. Depends if you're feeling lucky, punk. Well, do ya? All right, let me get back over to the chat room. Corey Manzier joins us, says hello. John Williams said, I have to thank you for most of my knowledge regarding computer building and problem solving. You are the best. Thank you, John. Hearing that never gets old. I appreciate the feedback. And Will says, thank you for your advice. Really appreciate it. Absolutely, Will. Thank you for asking the question and joining us in our live chat. Frank Jimmy said, a number of my clients have purchased the Minis Forum UM790 mini PC and they love it. Most are just using it for email and internet. The UM790 is a bit overkill for that purpose, but also a great value. True. Yeah, no denying. When we're comparing, if you watch my videos regularly and you see me comparing like Ryzen 5s and Ryzen 7s versus N100s and Ryzen 3s versus Core i9s and Ryzen 9s, and now the AMD, what are they called? The AI series from AMD. You'll notice that I kind of waver back and forth between certain manufacturers and the models they're offering at that time in that category. Like for me, if we were talking about mini PCs for gaming, as far as I'm concerned, there's really only one option, and that's Atom Man by Minis Forum. And you're not going to find one under $1,000, but you get what you pay for. There are others out there, but I don't think they're as good of a value, and I don't think they have as good of support. So for me, that's where I lean on that side. On the budget side, Minis Forum has some very competing mini PCs in the N100, N150 range, and they're fantastic. But they're not necessarily the least expensive. If we're talking about the best value, I think right now, I think Peladin's in the lead with that right now. And you know, competition's good. Let's bring it on. And with the tariffs being resolved, at least for the next 90 days, with stuff coming in from China here in the USA, that has calmed down. I hope to see things like the Jet KVM start to be offered again. I told you it was going to be temporary. And yes, we're going to revisit this in 90 days. But for now, everything should smooth out and should be more or less the way it was. If there's a price difference, it's teeny tiny. More importantly, China has reduced their tariffs for us down to 10%. That's much more fair. Much more fair. So maybe the idea of having to send something back to China won't be discouraging anymore. But until then, and we'll have to follow up on this, I buy things as much as I can from companies that I know are going to honor a return. So that's why, while you could purchase these products elsewhere, I recommend you purchase it from Amazon. Even if I'm not making a commission on the link, maybe you're watching in another country, Amazon universally has that free 30-day return policy for most products, especially if it's an Amazon Prime product. And that way it doesn't matter what the individual seller's rules are. For that peace of mind to know you have 30 days to evaluate and return it for any reason at no cost for a full refund, that right there, even if the PC were $10 more just to get that insurance, I would gladly pay it. The fact is, it's often cheaper on Amazon. So it's a no-brainer for me. If I'm buying a product, I'm not sure if I'm going to like it, I want to be able to return it without a hassle, without a restocking fee, without paying the return shipping or having to send it back to another country. And so these are things I consider before I make any recommendations or any purchases myself. If I am going to purchase something from where I don't know the return, like AliExpress, it's a gamble. I realize that whatever this is, I'm going to be stuck with it, just like buying at a garage sale. Don't expect to return it. Under those conditions, I still might purchase it if the price is right or the product is so unique I can't get it anywhere else. It may be worth that risk. But if the product difference in price is the only reason I'm buying it, it's not worth it. It would have to be significantly, like 50% cheaper for me to take that risk. And then I would be really skeptical over whether or not the item was counterfeit, and you'll have no recourse. If Amazon sends you a counterfeit item, you can return it, get your full refund, and there's no hassle. Just make sure it's coming from Amazon. And there usually is a, on the product page, there'll be a disclaimer of where it's being sold so that you're aware if you're buying from a third-party seller that's going to ship it to you from another country and Amazon is not involved. Walmart does a lot of this, by the way. If you look at Walmart's online shopping, it's a big marketplace with a bunch of scammers. And Walmart doesn't do much to help you, in my opinion. So I don't trust it. There's just too much scamming going on. Amazon does a great job of cracking down on it, but it's hard to stay on top of. So when I'm looking at where I'm buying from, like on this Peladin, it's coming from Peladin. If you go back to the Amazon page that I showed you earlier, it tells you who's selling. Hold on a minute, let me bring that up. It tells you who the seller is right here. It says visit the Peladin store. It also says, of course, you get faster shipping if you're a Prime member. But right down here, ships from Amazon. Returns. This is the part you want to pay attention to. This is on every single product page on Amazon. As long as I got that 30-day refund and replacement, and especially I want it shipped from Amazon, because if anybody else is shipping it, it could take a long time to get here. Ask me how I know. When I ordered those Intel Nook i5 units, there was a company out of the East Coast that was selling a bunch of refurbished ones. They took 10 days to arrive. They were packed well. They had a restocking fee if you needed to send it back. But the price was so good, and it came from Amazon, that to me it was worth waiting 2 weeks instead of 2 days, and knowing that for what it's going to cost me to return, pay for return shipping, and then potentially pay a restocking fee, because they can just make up any reason that a restocking fee applies. So I think of a worst case scenario. I might as well just keep it. So I ordered one. Everything came through fine. I think it was missing a screw, big deal. So I ordered 2 more. And then I ordered 2 more. So I think right now we sent one to our friend, good supporter of the channel, good friend of the channel. Hold on a second. Let me get back over to the, where am I? Let's get back over to our progress here. Our friend Jack, we call him Jack. He wanted a computer for his son. He saw one of those little Intel Nook i5s. He's like, could I buy one? I'm like, yeah, of course. I think I still have 4 of those laying around. And the reason I got them was for backup streamers, because I can put my capture card inside of them, and they're only this big. They're, you know, bigger than this, clearly. Probably about the same width, but comes up to about here. And I could slide 1 card in it, and I use the onboard video. So as an emergency backup for streaming, it will have more than enough power. And it should something happen unexpectedly where there's a theft, a fire, or some equipment burns out, I don't have to cancel the show until I can afford to buy new equipment. I've got spare equipment standing by, including spare microphones, spare transmitters, spare batteries and battery chargers, spare cameras, spare tripods, spare cables, and spare streaming computers for if it happens at Studio A or Studio C, there's backups. We don't just back up data. This is my livelihood. I need to protect it. I can't. You're not going to be a taxi driver for very long if you drive an unreliable piece of crap car that, first of all, nobody wants to ride in it. So if I'm filming on a potato, you'd probably be less likely to want to watch. If I'm recording my voice through the in-camera microphone, it's going to sound terrible. Ask me how I know, because that's how I started. SD camera and in-camera microphone, those old videos are pretty terrible by today's standards. Now this stuff has become so much more affordable, there's no excuse to not have it. And of course, with thanks to folks like Colin Hilton, a friend Buster, who's paid for several cameras through their contributions, you know, this is all a community channel. And I'm doing what I can to protect it. It's not just about me and my living, it's also about the community, because that means I don't get to visit with you and we don't get to chat and hang out together if I can't make the video. So I'm doing everything I can to protect it and ensure it. I'm always about imagining a worst case scenario and having a contingency. And that's the service of MSP, or managed service providing, that I encourage, or I will talk to my customers about thinking about a fire drill, right? If there's a fire, do you know how to get out of the building? You probably want to know that before it happens. All right, so what happens if you have an employee that deletes all the data because they're pissed off at you? What happens if your building gets broken into overnight and you come into the office in the morning and it's all cleared out? What happens if there's a fire? What happens if there's a flood? What happens if your employee clicks on a link they shouldn't have and the whole network gets encrypted? What are you going to do? And they go, well, you know, usually they say it hasn't happened. I go, yet. The idea is that we're prepared for any contingency. We hope it never happens. But just in case it does, no matter what happens, I can get you back up and running quickly. Say the building burns down, they can go to work out of their house. They could go rent a hotel room, get their employees to show up at the hotel. We'll set them up with a bunch of mini PCs on a little portable router, and we'll put the backup, we'll restore it onto a shared drive. It doesn't even have to be a NAS. We can plug a shared drive into a USB port. Everybody can get back to work. This whole thing can be done in 2 hours. It's like car insurance. You got a car, insure it. You got anything worth something to you, protect it. You don't want anything to happen. You're not wishing for anything to happen. And hopefully you'll never have to use the insurance. But if, say, you've got no homeowner's insurance and a big fire burns down a bunch of houses, like what happened in California recently and happens all the time, but it never happened there before. So what do I need homeowner's insurance for? And now the cost to rebuild that house is 20 times more than when that house was purchased, because the cost of land and everything in California in the last 20 years has exploded. Good luck finding a house for, you know, under $1 million there, at least in the Los Angeles area, San Diego or San Francisco especially. All of Southern California, very expensive in general. So the idea is that with the insurance, at least while you're inconvenienced by not having a house, well as being rebuilt, for some people who didn't have homeowners insurance, there's no rebuilding. There's just, you know, they can barely afford, they're probably staying at a friend's house. They can't even afford to rent somewhere. That's it. And you can't help but feel for them because it never happened before. So why would we protect ourselves from it? Life is chaos. And so if you have something of value you want to protect, you want some peace of mind knowing that if something unexpected occurs, you'll be covered. And so that's what I convey to customers or potential customers for the services that I offer, that let's hope you never need those services. But right now, if you don't have those services, there's nothing I can do to help you. If your building burns down and you have not hired me, you're calling me after the fact. That's like calling me after you get into a car accident and asking if you could buy car insurance. Too late now. I mean, we can get car insurance for tomorrow, but whatever happened today or yesterday, that's done. You should have been prepared for it. You weren't. And if you thought you were in a bad place, you just made it worse. And it's never expected. Nobody gets in the car and says, I'm going to get into a car accident today. I hope not. So it's always about the unexpected. It doesn't matter if you've never been in a car accident before. And the more expensive the car is, the better I hope your insurance is. It plays the same with computers and businesses, because that'll put a business permanently out of business and all the employees will be out of work. So there's some real serious consequences to that. All right, let me get back over to the chat room. Frank Jimmy said, did you say squirrel on Amazon? I got a feeling some squirreling on Amazon's coming up later tonight. Photo Mix Media joins us, says hello. Dwayne Blackwelder's checking out for the night. Thanks for popping in, Dwayne. Good to see you, my friend. Photo Mix Media says, what's the difference between the assumptions about a business burning down to the other assumptions we viewers have? I don't know. What assumptions are you referring to? We always encourage our viewers to make backups. What we don't encourage is our viewers to ask what if questions. The main difference is that when business clients are holding me accountable and paying me, my job is to provide them an answer. When a viewer wants to come in with technochondria and ask a bizarre, unreasonable question that's absolutely unjustifiable, I find it disrespectful to the value of my time that you want to conjure up your imagination. You might as well talk about ghosts and the boogeyman. I do not prevent ghosts and boogeymen, nor do I talk about it with my clients. That is the stuff of certain people that are not in business. If you guys want to discuss, what if scenarios just for the fun of it, that's not fun for me. I don't enjoy that. It's impractical. The knowledge conflates and confuses other people who think the reason you're telling them is for a reasonable purpose other than playing a game of what if. What I do is not a game, and I'm paid for it. So I'm not telling you that, if you want to protect your house against Sasquatch, what kind of windows should I put in case Sasquatch appears? I can't help you with that. I don't do that kind of work, and I will not engage in that conversation. But I'm not telling you you can't. You can go and do whatever you want. But please don't waste my time and don't disrespect what I do for a living, which is not a game. And I wish it was a game. If I could play a game and get paid for it, sign me up. But there's real world consequences that affect a lot of people if I fail my job. All right. So when people have reasonable questions, like they're having an actual issue, we're certainly more than happy to help them, and we always do. But if somebody's issue is mental, where they just can't seem to let go of a unrealistic, unreasonable, and unjustifiable scenario that they're looking for reassurance, I'm not a babysitter and I'm not a psychiatrist. Those are the people that would be better tuned for that. When I go to a business client, there's no babysitting, there's no psychiatry. That's not what we do. We're there to do work, and we're there to ensure against we take reasonable precautions against things that are very possible. These things that are possible have happened. They've happened to my clients or clients I know of, where there's been fires, there's been floods, there's been ransomware. I've seen it all. I'm not just conjuring up my imagination to come up with a reason to scare somebody. That's just nastiness. So if that helps answer the question, what viewers are doing here on the internet is they're making up scenarios without any justification. When somebody has an actual problem or the road they're going down, they need to be prepared for that road. Once we know what the road is, and once we know what, let's say, the Rubicon Trail, you need to be prepared for the Rubicon Trail, and we can help you prepare. But if you're just making up stories in your head, well, what if I'm driving at a place that has lava in the middle of the road? Like, you're just making stuff up. That's wasting my time, and I find it very disrespectful. So I hope, and again, no offense back at you, there's a very big difference between these two things. When people have real concerns, real justifiable concerns, we always provide them the help. But if all they're doing is sitting around making up imaginary stories, go do that. Like, I'm not interested. Maybe someone in the chat will answer your question, but that's just ridiculous. It's like what little kids do. And so I get really frustrated with that. Ben Laird with a 10-pound super chat. Thank you, Ben. David Herzog says, hello, Carey. Chat, I'm installing Windows updates. Right on. Dustin says he likes to watch Harry and the Hendersons on occasion. Paul Howe joins us and says hello. Let's see. Let's get back over here. How are we doing? Still, so 24H2 is a big update. And, you know, we've got time. We'll let it run. See if I have some time afterwards. We can throw crystal disk info or crystal disk mark on here. Get an idea of the read and write speeds. A lot of these budget machines will have SATA drives and not NVMe. I'm under the impression that this is a Gen 3 NVMe. It'll generally only be 2 channels on an N series processor, meaning the max speed will be about 1800. So let's just verify that here. On a Ryzen 3, you could get the full Gen 3 speed. But on the Intel Celerons, the processors and the lanes are limited. It's one way they bring the price down. So if what you're looking for is higher performance, you need to spend more money. On the other hand, most people can't really see much difference between 550 megabytes per second on SATA versus 7,000 or even 12,000 megabytes per second on a Gen 5 NVMe. They'll all feel the difference in their wallet, but the actual time difference is usually just milliseconds that, besides a benchmark, a human being can very barely notice. They might say, yeah, it's a little more responsive. It does feel a little snappier. And does that feeling a little snappier justify spending $500? No, it's not $500 faster. It's almost the universal answer. So if I can save you $500 and it's just a little, like, it's still responsive. There's no complaints that it's slow, but by comparison, would you pay $500 or even $300 to get that little bit of snappier response? Most people universally across the board say no. Yeah, we're installing. We'll keep an eye on it. Just looking here in the chat for other questions you might have. You know, it's funny. I've sent a few mini PCs out last week, the week before, and this week. And before I send them out, I always make sure that I update them, all latest updates, so that when the user gets it, when the recipient gets it, they can plug it in and start using it. And it seems almost universally true that anytime I do this, while the machine is in transit, updates come out. So when everybody gets their machines, they're going to be due for updates. But at least it won't be big, long updates like this. It'll happen quicker. But I do everything I can so they don't have to do that. They will eventually. But I really want it as much as possible that they can take it out of the box, plug it in, and start setting it up. I've already set the foundation for them. So it kills me when I hear a user go, well, the first thing I did is I wiped it and reinstalled Windows. Oh, why did I waste all my time doing that for you? Updating your drivers and optimizing Windows and getting all the updates. It takes hours for you to just wipe it out. And they can, but it just stings a little. Get me some Band-Aids. But yeah, so now these machines that have gone out last week, some of which haven't arrived yet, others just arrived the other day, they're already due for updates. Never-ending battle. Dustin said, those mini PCs do ship a lot easier than the big boys. Oh, that's for sure. Yeah, they don't damage as easily, they're not as fragile, they don't take up as much space in the truck, so they're not as expensive, and they're lighter. So for all of those reasons, plus in many cases, they're just faster computers for less money. For the same amount of money, you get more bang for the buck on a mini PC than any desktop, period. Even a used desktop is not giving you better value overall than a brand new mini under warranty, especially if you have to ship it. The last computer we shipped the full tower, that was a mid-tower, Project Zero, to our friend Lou Greeny in Vermont. It was $200 for packaging, shipping, the box, and it arrived with the CPU fan popped off of the spindle, and Luke had to, thankfully, we sent it to somebody who said, oh, this is no big deal, I can seat the fan back on the spindle. But for other customers, they'd say, I don't know what to do. I don't, you know what I mean? Like, I'd have to explain the whole thing, take the fan out. And thankfully, the fan didn't damage anything, because Lord knows how long that fan was bouncing around inside the case, but it didn't scratch the glass. It didn't break the RAM free. But it should have been no damage at all. For $200 to ship that computer, I expect no damage. But there's also, if there's no box damage, there's no insurance claim that FedEx will honor. In fact, I don't know anybody who's ever had an insurance claim from UPS, USPS, DHL, or FedEx ever paid. They will run you through the ringer with paperwork and conditions and find every excuse to not pay you a dime. That the amount of time you have to invest to try and get your money back from insurance on a shipped package, it's just not worth doing it. And more than likely, you're never going to get your money. So I stopped shipping packages with insurance. And I've also stopped asking for a signature, because all that was adding to the cost of shipping. And they won't honor the insurance. They've never honored it. And the signatures don't really seem to be required for the people I'm shipping to. They seem to be pretty on top of getting their packages, and aren't necessarily living in neighborhoods where somebody's going to swipe the package from the porch. So that's saving me some money as well by dropping the insurance and the signature. Might as well not have it if they're not going to honor it. Patrick T said, should I plug my 7-port USB 3.0 hub into one of the 4 blue ports, or should I use a rear red port used to update flash drives and gamepad connections? The red ports often provide power when the computer's off, for like charging a cell phone or a Bluetooth speaker. It probably doesn't matter either way. If you have more red ports available than blue ones and you want to keep some free, on the other hand, obviously you have a hub for a reason. I would use a blue port personally, but I don't really think it makes any difference. Whatever works best for you. I do believe those red ports are the same USB 3. Your motherboard may vary, so you might want to check it. Phil Stodd mentioning to John, he said, I ran into a problem when I upgraded my 8th gen to a 12th gen system. I found it was the newer system enabled, IPv6. I don't know why it was a problem, but it worked for me. Interesting. I haven't heard of anybody having any
computer crashes or boot issues with IPv6 being turned on. And yes, it should be turned on. It should have been turned on since Windows 7. So that's a bit baffling. Yeah, Doman 2000 also answering Patrick's question. Should not make much difference if you use the red or the blue ports. The red can often be set as powered for charging when the PC is off. So we're on the same page there. That's always good to see. Patrick says, if I expect a package, I track it like a hawk. I live in a townhome complex with a shared porch, so I make sure I get my packages immediately. Yeah, and if I were sending you something and you requested to have the signature, or I can ship it to a nearby FedEx store, and then FedEx will reach out to you and say, hey, we've got your package down the street. Come in during FedEx store hours, bring your ID, and we'll hand your package to you. That's a guaranteed way you'll get it. If there's no FedEx store near you, they'll drop it off at like a Walgreens or a Dollar General. One of those will take packages up to a certain size anyway. Eugene Ildago joins us, says hello, welcome in. CG wants to know if I prefer a Samsung 990 Pro or a Western Digital Black. Whichever one's cheaper. They're both excellent. I think the 990 is Gen 5 and the Western Digital Black is only Gen 4, if that matters to you. I still have not heard the fan on this. Like usually during Windows updates, on most computers I'll hear a fan crank up for a little bit and then slow back down a couple times. But so far this whole broadcast, I've even forgotten this is here. It's very, very quiet. Maybe if I hold it against the microphone, you're going to hear it a lot louder, but let's see. The microphone meter isn't even moving. I mean, you're right up against it. I don't know how that sounded, but I imagine it. You're hearing it much, much louder than I am. It's also not getting very hot. It's warm, but it's not hot. That's a good thing too, especially when you're dealing with these thinner units. Heat and fan noise traditionally have been an issue, very common issue when machines this thin. This is a good design here on their cooling. They've done a good job. Obviously, you're not going to be putting any 3.5-inch drives inside, but I tell you not to do that anyway. I don't recommend it. I can't see any reason anybody would open this up. If you wanted to add more storage, I would just go USB 3. The USB 3 is just as fast, if not faster, than the internal storage on this, which it sounds crazy. And maybe a test we should run. If we take a fast flash drive and run Crystal Disk Mark on it through these USB 3 ports, these are what? These are 10 gig ones? That should run 1,000 megabytes per second. So the internal drive will probably run at most 1,800. That's pretty darn close. If these were 20 gig ports, then you'd be looking at USB 3.2 Gen 2 times 2. You could do 2,000 megabytes per second, which this doesn't support that, but some do. And if you have a drive that's USB 3.2 Gen 2 by 2, it'll be faster than your internal drive, which you would never be able to utilize, right? Because if you're moving data from your internal drive to your external or the other way around, your internal drive is your bottleneck for everything else. So the idea that you're going to make it any faster, take that right off the table. If you just need more space, just plug a USB drive in it. The speed difference, you know, again, if we're at 10 gigs here, we're going to be at maybe less than half the speed of the internal drive. I mean, if you're that demanding, why are you buying a budget machine? That's pretty damn fast, 1,000 megabytes a second. No, it's not fast enough for me. Well, that's fine. Just give me some more money. Give somebody some more money, and you can have as fast as you can afford. But yeah, I would just plug external storage on this thing. Or any mini PC, not just this one, any of them. Because if you have a problem with your mini PC, and you've got everything tied into this little box, you've just put all your eggs in one basket. That's a bad setup. Best to have things a little more independent, a little more modular, so that if something should happen, at the very least you could unplug, in theory, your external drive and go and put it somewhere else so you can keep going without being completely down in a situation where that could happen for any reason, power outage, theft, whatever, you know. Things to consider. Also, if you wanted to add another storage drive or a bigger storage drive, you're not opening it up. You just unplug a cable, plug a cable in, you're done. Faster, easier, less chance for an error to happen or any incompatibility. It just works. Andy Kane joins us and says hello. Welcome in, Andy. Ian says, I love your videos, Carey. They've helped me greatly. Thank you, Ian. I guess Ian, I'm going to guess, is in England or in the UK, so I'll say cheers to Ian. What's happening?
Take a wild guess.
Email?
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow. Is it payday today?
It never happens.
It's Taco Tuesday. Tacos for everyone. All right, let's check the email. Lawrence Pierre sent $10 via PayPal. Thank you, Lawrence. Lawrence joins us from Trinidad and Tobago. Am I saying Tobago right? Tobago? You know how to say it?
All right.
There was a question that someone asked in Doug Betts' live Windows Training with Doug Betts YouTube channel. That what if, so $300 data recovery is, we talk about them for data recovery services. And the question is, if my solid state drive is soldered on to the board, like with an Apple computer, can data recovery still get to it? That's a fair question. I've never had that circumstance come up, but I can foresee that as something to be concerned about. Obviously, you make backups, but I wrote Brian, over the owner of $300 data recovery, and I posed this question to him. Sometimes he says we can use a tool like disk drill to boot the computer, then we can scan/move the data. So in other words, if the computer still boots, but the drive is dead and the drive is soldered on, not the RAM, the drive. And again, this is mostly Apple that does this, but also tablet computers, and there are some laptops out there. He said if there's a minor logic board damage, or sorry, if there is minor logic board damage, he got an employee named Nathan who can sometimes repair it and recover the data. If the logic board is faulty, we collaborate with Mac logic board repair specialists, like Louis Rossman, for example, to recover the data. Although their costs are higher than ours, we have negotiated favorable rates with them and often making it more cost effective than if the customer were to approach them directly. Oh, that's interesting. We obtain customer approval of the price and do not conceal that we're sending it to a third party when necessary. Man, I just love how Brian runs his business. I love his transparency. I love his can-do attitude. Thank you, Brian, for answering my question. And that's over at $300 data recovery. They've got over 33,000 successful recoveries and over 6,000 customer reviews since 2007. They're the highest rated, most reviewed data recovery, I think, on the planet. And, you know, I asked Brian, I said, did you really think it through when you named it $300 data recovery? Because if you raise your rates, you got to change the name of the business. Well, as drives have gotten bigger and bigger, he has to charge more because there's more data to recover. But if your drive is, you know, about the maximum size they were when the company started, the price has never changed. That's insane to me, because you know the cost of living's gone up. He's probably paying more in rent. The idea that he has stayed true to that name, I think up to 2 terabytes, if I'm not mistaken. And if you have a drive and you're curious, and by the way, I'm not paid to tell you any of this. I'm just trying to save you some money and heartache. Because any other data recovery place, it's usually $1,800 and up. So the fact that they start at $300 over at $300 data recovery. Not only that, if you go to their website, $300 data recovery or 300ddr.com, there's an estimator that says, you know, what are the chances of my recovery? And they just fill out these online forms about what you've got and what the problem is and any sort of symptoms you can describe. If the drive is clicking, they ask these questions and they give you a chances of recovery percentage-wise. And if they make an attempt and they can't do it, it's $99. If they can't get 100% of the data back, I think if they can get anything, I'm trying to remember how it goes. I think 99% is the lowest number they guarantee at a certain price. And if they can get less than 99%, I think there's an option there for a lower price. Anyway, it's very fair, it's very transparent, and they always keep you up to date. Like from the day they get your drive, they tell you. The day they're looking at your drive, they tell you. A list of files they'll email you that they can recover, and they can tell what percentage of files they tell you. So you have a chance to back out, and then you just pay the $99 try fee. Or if the files they can recover are not the files you were looking for, you're not committed to the $300 plus, and you get the answers quick. They are constantly emailing with updates. So I can't say enough good about them. But if you made backups, you'd never need them and he'd be out of business. In the meantime, his business is booming. So doesn't make any sense to me. You could do your own data recovery with a 100% success rate for free, or you can wait and send it to $300 data recovery to save money that you should have never needed to begin with, in my opinion. And I've been straight up with Brian about this. I'm like, you should not have a job, man. He's like, oh. He's not arguing with me. And the thing that I crack up, I just never get enough of when I see a review that says, I've got to tell you, I have used $300 data recovery multiple times, and they're always the best. If you had to send your drive in to get the data recovered, it must be pretty important to you. You're probably sweating bullets hoping they could get it back. Why would you ever allow yourself to be in that position ever again? When I see these reviews where someone says, oh, I've used them multiple times, why would you ever need to use them more than once? Are you somebody that just doesn't learn your lesson? Are you somebody that enjoys anxiety and wondering, are they going to be able to get my data back and let me throw some more money at this? Like, if you haven't figured out the first time, now I realize maybe somebody's a technician and they're getting different clients and they're trying to help their clients. That makes sense. But at the same time, all I'm thinking of is one guy who just keeps failing drives and keeps sending it back in and still refuses to make a backup. And he's spending thousands and thousands of dollars spending it and saying, you guys are amazing. I love you guys. That's why I'm going to keep giving you my business. Oh, gosh. It hurts my head. Just Dustin Fuller with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Dustin. Phil Stodd said, I had 2 identical USB drives that caused 24H2 not to boot. Sure. One drive had backups on it. The other one was causing the issue. The other booted fine. So I would absolutely remove any external drives before doing a Windows install or a big Windows update like 24H2. I would just temporarily unplug. You don't have to unplug them forever. It's not like you're going to be using them anyway. Just unplug them, do your update, reboot, and then plug them back in. And you'll never have that problem again. Just follow those practices every time. Otherwise, it might work or it might not. But if you do it the way I suggest, it'll always work. Or if it doesn't work, it won't be because of the USB drives. That much I guarantee. Is the update still downloading? No, it says it's installing. Let me go full screen here so I can see it the way you guys at home see it. Oh, well, it says installing 0%. I have seen where it sits at 0% and then it suddenly goes to 100%. No sooner than I start talking about it. See, I can't make this up, it's all live. As soon as I mention it, it went to 1%. So it is progressing. This is a very large update, and this is a budget computer. So do plan for the amount of time you'll need accordingly. What I've been doing lately is I've been using the KVM devices. You know, I just don't know how I've been living my life without these things. And you've probably seen a lot of videos lately from me. I've just posted 3 in a row of the Jet KVM, the Comet KVM from GLINet, and the Nano KVM. And I keep finding myself going back to the Nano KVM. And the reason for that, if I step over here, I've got 2 of them. They're both exactly the same, except one is in white and one is in black. And you'll see there's just 2 cables. One goes to the HDMI port, one goes to the USB port. And this is a portable monitor, essentially, that's going to transmit the monitor over the internet or over the browser on my local network. So I can control the computer, including the BIOS. It's a monitor. It's not remote software. So I unplug the monitor I've got now, plug this monitor into it, and then I can go to a browser to any computer on my network and pull the monitor display off of any computer, except maybe a laptop where the HDMI port may not be enabled until Windows loads. Depends on the laptop. But for any desktop, any mini PC, so I go upstairs and open up my laptop and I start doing these updates in a browser window. I update the BIOS and configure the BIOS like secure boot through the browser window. I don't have to come downstairs and stand behind here to do this. Then when I'm all done, I simply shut the computer off. Then I come downstairs and unplug this and put this back in the box, and it's ready to be shipped off to somebody. It's done, instead of me going up and down the stairs checking on it constantly. I'm also thinking I'm going to plug one of these into Studio A, because I leave that computer on 24/7, but I only log into it once a week. So maybe I'll just go ahead and shut the computer off, and we'll use Wake on LAN. And that's why I have 2 of these, one for here, one for over there. As for the Jet KVM versus the Comet, they're very difficult to buy right now. So I'm waiting for all that to get sorted, and I'm familiarizing myself with the with the Nano KVM. It's not perfect. None of these are perfect. They're first generation devices, but for $70, they're a steal. If you go on eBay and look for a used rack-mounted KVM, IP KVM, good luck. They're all going to be like VGA out, you know, the old ones, and they probably sold for $3,000 for businesses. The idea that they can get this small and affordable and it's this good, holy moly. Plus, what I like is this has the extra space on the micro SD card that holds the boot media. That this is a little computer. It's a little RISC-V processor. They call it RISC-V. Oh, it's not my wheelhouse. But regardless of that, the amount of space left over is like 21 gigs. So I can load all my utilities. I can even load a BIOS update on here, and the computer sees it as an external flash drive. It's pretty cool. But not all computers see it the same. So for some computers, you can use it to boot the update a BIOS, and some you can't. And on the ones I can't, I just come downstairs and I just grab a flash drive and I plug it in and I go back upstairs and then copy the file to the flash drive, reboot into the BIOS, update the BIOS, delete the file off the flash drive, finish the work, shut it down, and then I take the flash drive out and put it back in the drawer. I just don't have to keep going up and down the stairs. So this process that's taking forever, I would do this, you know, after dinner. I would just set this up. There's no software involved. Just plug it in. Disconnect my monitor, plug this in instead. This needs internet and this needs internet. Neither one, well, this could be on Wi-Fi if I wanted it to be, but I just run 2 network cables, one to the computer, one to the KVM. Guess who reached out to me and said, hey, I think that could be pretty useful. I really want a USB, or not a USB, I want an HDMI loopback. They're supposed to be coming out with a pro version next month of the Nano KVM that will have 4K loop out. So you can still plug your, basically plug your monitor output into this and then plug your monitor into this so you can have it to loop. But this is really primarily intended for remote, real remote. So if I plug this into Studio A, I can't see the monitor at Studio A unless I'm there. So what's the point? The whole point is I'm not there. If I was there, I wouldn't need this. So it doesn't bother me that, you know, I got to unplug the monitor. So what? So I plug the monitor in here, and then I can access it using, with this, a free GitHub secure encrypted connection called Tailscale, which I've already been using with my Synology NASs for backups from my customers without having to drive all the way out to my customers anymore to swap out their backup drives. I can now do that right here, click a button. It's slower, but what do I care? It's not like the computer can't do anything else. I just let the file synchronization run over the virtual network to the clients. And as far as I'm concerned, I can go to bed. Client's done for the day. By the time they come in the morning, it'll be done. And even if it's not done, they won't even notice it. They won't notice the upload happening. And now I'm not driving 30 miles back and forth. So these, life-changing. So yeah, Doug Betts reached out and he's like, well, I sure would like to be able to update BIOSes using something like that. And I said, well, here's a link. I also told him the other 2 units, the Jet KVM and the Comet KVM, they include all the cables. The Nano KVM does not include an HDMI cable. But that's okay, because the HDMI cables these other guys include are kind of, they're not the best. So I just bought a $6 8K capable HDMI cable that's really thin cable. And I got one for this one, I got one for this one, and I got one for the Comet, because the Comet one was a really thick, inflexible HDMI cable and also quite heavy. I don't want that weight on the connector. $6. So yeah, I can choose Wake on LAN, or it even includes a little ATX board that you can wire to your power switch. You can physically activate the power switch through this. So it's another way you could wake it up, but I don't want to do all that wiring. And you can do that with the other 2 units, but you have to buy that ATX adapter separately, whereas the Nano KVM includes it in the package. I would have been so much happier if they would have kept, for the same price, keep the ATX adapter, charge me separately for that if I want it. But everybody needs to have an HDMI cable. Why did they leave it out? I don't know. So normally, because this takes so long, I would just be doing this upstairs in a browser window. And then I could just tap on the browser window on that tab just to see how it's progressing. And if it needs to reboot, I click reboot. It's no different than standing right here in front of it. And I can watch it rebooting. I can watch the post screen. I can see the installing updates. You can't do that with remote software, because remote software needs Windows to load first. So there's always this dead area of nothingness, hoping the computer is going to come back on, hoping that it's just busy doing something. I can't tell. But with this, I can tell. So that's why I got 2 of them. And you can order these on Amazon right now. The other 2 you can't get. So if you want one now, you can get them at Amazon. They're $70. They take about 10 days shipping or so. I don't know how I've ever lived without one. It's a perfect dork says, what's not good about these mini PCs, BIOS support non-existent and driver support. Well, you know, what that's like saying is, what's not good at eating at McDonald's is I can't order a filet mignon cooked the way I want it cooked. I can't tell the chef, make my burger medium rare. You can absolutely do that at a more expensive restaurant. The fancier the restaurant, the more accommodating they'll be to any special requests. But if you want the cheapest meal you can buy made for you, and that's not good enough for you, then you shouldn't be eating there. In other words, it's not a fault on their part. That's a fault on you making a bad decision. That's the way I see it. If you want a BIOS that's going to have constant updates, you probably want to build your own computer. There's a reason why BIOS support exists on a modular motherboard. It's because you can change your RAM and you can change your CPU. Nothing's changing on this board. You don't need BIOS updates unless something's extremely wrong. There's no need for it. There is a need for it on a modular system. Things are soldered down here. Nothing's changing. So when you do see a BIOS update come out, it's usually to fix something that's critical, like a security vulnerability, and they will come out for that. When we were looking at the Atom Man from Minis Forum, they advertised that it's having RAID support, but there was no RAID option in the BIOS. And they said, well, we haven't gotten to that point yet. We'll come out with a BIOS update. And it took a while. It took about 2 or 3 months. And then finally the BIOS update came out, and all it did was add RAID support. So if you were never using RAID to begin with, there was no benefit to you updating to that BIOS. Just because there's a BIOS update available doesn't mean it's any benefit to you whatsoever. And it doesn't mean that it's a degradation of the unit by not offering it. There's a misunderstanding about what you're purchasing and why updates exist on some computers and not on others. And it has to do with how much cost, right? How complex the machine is. The more complex it is and the more customizable it is, the more variables exist that you need to protect from or be compatible with. Something like this really doesn't need that. But if you require it, you shouldn't be buying one of these. I mean, it's just common sense, isn't it? You can be as picky as you want to be so long as you've got a wallet to back that up. But if you're buying a $140 computer and that's not good enough for you, you should not have bought it. But I don't think there's anything that's not transparent or is a sacrifice in the sense that, well, it's not modular. Well, no, it never claimed to be. Well, it doesn't have the BIOS updates. Well, it does if they're necessary, but they're not necessary because it's not modular. Like, what part of this are we miscommunicating on? So yes, if for you that is a deal breaker, then you should not buy one of these. They're not for people like you. Nor is any computer at $140. I'm just telling you, not picking on you. I'm just saying you're not being reasonable if you think you're going to get dine-in, casual dine-in experience at Little Caesars Pizza, which is carry-out only. That's not on them. That's on you for not understanding what you're buying and having an unrealistic expectation. There's no fault, in my opinion, that you're not getting something on a mini PC that in any way would be detrimental to the lifespan or the security of the PC that doesn't exist in any other laptop or desktop. They're the same chips, they're the same chipsets, they're the same network cards, it's all the same drivers, everything's the same. So I have no idea what you're on about. No idea. But that's my opinion on that. Doman 2000 says, maybe next time do an in-place Windows 24H2 upgrade right off the flash drive just for variation. There's a reason why I don't do that. Most end users, most consumers who are going to buy this computer are likely not even going to check for updates. They're just going to happen in the background. And one of the best ways I have found to test a computer before delivering it to a customer is to install updates naturally. That's why when people say, you should make an installer that has all the updates on it. No. I have had calls come in from customers who say, my updates aren't working. This update won't install. It keeps trying over and over and over again. I need to see that. Something's wrong. That's not normal. Something is wrong. So I want to catch that before I deliver the machine to the customer. And while it doesn't guarantee that won't happen, it significantly reduces the odds that if all the other updates have come in naturally the way they're supposed to, and they've all processed without error, then in theory, logically, all future updates should work the same. If there's a bad update, then I'm going to get a call from every customer regarding that. regardless of what I've done to try and prevent that. That's out of my control. But what is within my control is to make sure the machine runs under the way the user is going to use it, not the way that's the most efficient for me. And I don't think most users, probably, I don't know, 999 out of 1,000 or maybe 499 out of 500 would have a flash drive and an ISO image to do this. Most are just going to turn it on. It's going to happen automatically. And my question is, when running it the way a consumer runs it, does it run the way it's supposed to? If so, that's a great burn-in test. Now, that being said, I have had like modular systems up here that I have done this before by plugging in a 24H2 my installer and just installing it that way, or just downloading the Windows Assistant. You've seen me do that a number of times here where we're not getting 24H2 offered yet for some reason, and so I force it because we're live and I don't have the patience to wait. Most people aren't going to force it. Most people are not going to download the Windows Installation Assistant or even know what that is, or even know that they're missing 24H2. It will happen in time, but because I'm live, I want to make it happen now. So there is a logic and a reasoning behind the processes that I use because they're not my computers. You have to really put yourself in the seat of passing that computer off to somebody who's paying you, and they're going to call you because you're the one who sold it to them if they have any problems. And while I enjoy talking to my customers, I don't enjoy the stress of getting a phone call that, hey, we got a problem, I need your help, this isn't working. I do everything within my power for the common reasons that I see over and over again to eliminate that from ever happening. The customers, they don't know that I've done all that. All they know is they bought the computer and it works. They will never know that I potentially saved them from having issues by taking care of it before I delivered it. And that's what they pay me for. So I have done that though. I have done the Windows Installation Assistant and the, just using a flash drive installer. But for situations like this, I want to replicate what the end user does. Overall, like that's the vast majority of end users we're talking about. So again, I appreciate the suggestion, but I just want to give you a reasoning like why I'm not doing that today. Andy Kane, now a member for 21 months, says, in 3 months' time, I'll be at 2 years of membership. Happy days. Right on, Andy. 3 months, let's see, we're in May, June, July, August. Whew, August is going to be a miserable month, but at least we've got that to look forward to. It's hot. It's so hot and humid here. Asgar said, Carey, can you recommend extra RAM for this mini PC? No. Putting extra RAM on this computer is a silly waste of money, in my opinion. If this computer isn't equipped enough for you, you should not buy it. This is an N150 processor. So if we look at the limitations of the CPU, you just can't put whatever RAM you want in it like it's an i5 or an i7. You just can't. It won't take it. You only have one RAM socket. And I can't remember if the RAM limit is 16 gigs or 32 gigs, but let's just do a wiki lookup on this. Regardless, you're probably not even going to use 16 gigs. If 16 gigs is not enough RAM for you, then you should not be buying this computer because an N150 CPU won't really utilize more than that anyway. You're just fooling yourself and wasting your money. That's why they don't offer them. Can you find me, let me just put it this way, can you find me an N-based CPU, like an N95, N97, N100, N150, or N300 with more than 16 gigs of RAM? Do you see anybody selling them that way? Let's start with that question. And that's a sincere question. Maybe somebody out there's, is there one on Amazon? If so, please show me. If not, did you ever wonder why? So let's do a search on, where did I go? Let's go to my window capture. Since we're waiting on this install anyway, something to do. N150 RAM limit. See what we get. officially supports a maximum 16 gigs of RAM. That's it. That's all you get. That's all it's ever going to be. Now, some users have reported running 32 gigs of RAM, but that doesn't mean the system's actually using it. It may see it, and it might make you feel good. You might get, you know, what do they call? Butterflies in your stomach, or, you know, warm fuzzies. You get warm fuzzies, but it's not actually doing anything in most cases. Just because the BIOS will see it doesn't mean the processor can handle it. It's a limited processor. And it's so important for you to understand how the processor's different and why are their prices so different. Because if we go to Amazon and we just want to look up a pretty basic processor that would take 32 gigs of RAM, we could look up, let's say, a basic Intel i5, I don't know, something cheap but fairly modern. That's more than the cost of the mini PC, and that's not including a motherboard, power supply, RAM, storage, operating system, case. All right, you're already more than the cost of the computer. 150, you're still more than the cost of the computer. 144, you're still more than the cost of the computer. 12400F has no video card, so you're not going to be able to get any video output at $108. So you also need the motherboard, the RAM, the CPU, the power supply, the case, and a video card. $135, no video card. $180, already more than the price of the machine. $129, no video card. That F means you have to provide your own graphics card. 12400 is $143. $110 without the video card. Here's a used processor. It's a Xeon processor, so the motherboard's only going to set you back $700. Here's an i5 7500 that's not Windows 11 compliant for $35. And you still have to buy the motherboard, the cooler. Well, no, it comes with the cooler. The RAM, the storage, the case, the power supply. Oh, and the Wi-Fi is also included on the mini PC. That would, see what I'm saying? You're going to get what you pay for. But if you do decide to go that route, you can put up to 128 gigs of RAM, or possibly even more than that in there. But it's only an i5. So why would you do that? It's like putting premium gasoline into a car that doesn't use it. It'll burn it just fine, but it's costing you way more money with zero benefit. You're just spending money for no reason. Now, if a car requires premium gas, likely because it has a higher compression engine, then that's a different story. But if you just think, oh, I'm going to treat my car to some nice premium gas, your car, if it doesn't require it, you're just wasting money. You're just flushing money down. Just take the money, go to your toilet, stick it in the toilet and flush it. It's the exact same end result. All right, so I hope that clears up any confusion. If a budget computer, the way you've purchased it, doesn't have enough of something for you, you should not be looking at a budget. This is not who it's for. If you're shopping at Costco and the only thing they sell are 5-gallon jugs of mayo, and you rarely ever eat mayo and you live alone, why would you buy a 5-gallon jug of mayo? It's not for you. That's not who it's being sold for. Now, if you run a restaurant and you're going through a 5-gallon jug of mayo every 3 hours, that's a different story. So it's important that you buy the right equipment that meets your needs. You cannot buy a $140 computer and think it's the same as a $1,000 computer with upgrades and advances with modularity. You can buy that, but that's not what this has ever claimed to be. It's not what it's designed to be. And you're really just creating your own heartache if you insist on not getting the whole point of this, why these exist. So, for most people's needs, these are far exceeding the needs of the average user. If you're not the average user and your needs exceed what this can do, don't buy it. It's not for you. It's not customizable. None of them are customizable. At most, the more expensive units, you can add more RAM and you can add more storage, and that's it. Nothing else is customizable. Oh, and maybe you can change the Wi-Fi card. If you want to be able to change everything, you need to build a desktop. You need to build your own. And I guarantee you, you will be spending at least 5 to 8 times more money to do that than what this costs. So just set your expectations to be reasonable and you'll be a happy purchaser. I don't want you to have any buyer's remorse because you had unrealistic expectations that you were getting something cheap that was equal to something more expensive. There's a reason. You pay less, you get less. But most people don't need all the excess. Then you may not need it either. Some people just want it. Makes them feel happy to have 600 horsepower when they barely drive the speed limit, never ever go fast. They just want a car that can, and they're willing to pay for it. No problem. But if you think a Toyota Prius and a Chevy Corvette are one and the same and the Prius is just cheaper, I don't know what to say. They're very different, serve different purposes. And you're like, well, I could convert the engine and do all this other things to the Prius to make it faster. No, still won't be the same. And you'll end up spending way more money. All right, let's see what else. Doman 2000 mentions after in-place upgrades, it still needs to download the latest. Yeah, but what if some of the updates work and some of the updates don't? If you skip any of the updates by installing them locally, maybe those were the ones that were going to have the problem. How would you ever know? So the only way I know for certain without wondering is to make sure I do it exactly the way the user does it. That's it. And my record stands with regards to the frequency of support calls since I started this process of testing machines by really using them instead of simulating usage. My support calls have gone down 90%. 90%. Do you think I want to risk that? Nope. I'd rather go the other way. I'd rather make it 95%. I don't want to go down to 70 because, well, I want to see what happens. There's no benefit to that for me. And it's an inconvenience to my customer. So I have no logical reasoning to go backwards. But I appreciate your perspective. And, you know, there are machines we've done that on, just not on these machines. For that reason, though, I just want you to understand that's the logic there. Asgar said he thought he could get around a slow of Celeron by using more RAM. No, Celeron's a no. You're not gonna outthink it. Like you're not gonna. This is a big mistake I see with the general public is they think they're smarter than the engineers who develop this stuff. I mean, if you want to believe that, go ahead. But the reality is the engineers and the people, the teams of people that work together in engineering at Intel and AMD, it's not one person making up their mind. They have to develop under budgetary constraints, technology constraints, time constraints to get the best value that's competitive in the marketplace, that's reliable, that's going to have happy customers returning for more. They're not about maybe we could make it run fast for 10 seconds and we can overclock to a new Guinness World Record and then throw it in the garbage when we're done. That's a hobbyist activity. If you want stable and you want fast, you've got to pay for it. You're not going to have any workaround. At the end of the day, you can buy the fastest car on the market, or you can buy the cheapest car on the market and put a lot of money into making it fast. But if the roads you're driving on are in bad condition or crowded with other cars, you're not going any faster than that permits, regardless. The CPU isn't going to run any faster if you could put more RAM in it because you'd have to change the CPU. Your storage isn't going to run any faster because the CPU doesn't offer enough lanes. You'd have to change the CPU. But if you change the CPU, you got to change the motherboard. And since the CPU is soldered to the board, they all come out and you have to start all over again. And you're going to spend $800 to build a $300 computer because you didn't want to buy a $300 computer. Instead, you bought a $140 computer and rebuilt it for another $500. That's insanity. Just buy the right tool out of the gate so you don't have to modify it. And you're good to go. You will be far more reliable. I fix more computer issues caused by the users trying to improve or clean their computers who thought it's something easy to do an unnecessary upgrade for no reason whatsoever that damaged a perfectly good working computer that I have to bill them to fix now. It's their choice. I just think, what a shame. If they had just left it alone, it would still be working and they wouldn't have had to pay me. Keep that in mind. It's your money and it's your time. John Williams says, I like the big beast build that Doug has. 256 gigs of memory. I don't think he's using all of it. Doug isn't using 16 gigs of that. Come on. You ask Doug to go into his task manager and ask what his memory usage is at Big Beast Build at any time. And if he's at the most, he'll be in the 20 gig range. And have him run as much stuff as he wants to run. Open as many browser tabs. I challenge you to get him to exceed 32 gigs of actual memory in use. I would love to see that. In fact, if any of you can do it, I'd love to see it. Big Beast was built to be overkill. The point of Big Beast was to see where the limits of the technology were. What was the best processor that we could afford, all right, in this range, and the best motherboard in this range where we're not, anything above that is just teeny tiny differences. What if we filled every RAM socket with the largest available memory at that time? What would it do? What if we put an 8 terabyte NVMe drive, which were very rare at the time and very expensive? Are they less reliable? Is there any downside? So you decide. $10,000 computer versus a $1,000 computer. You'd have to be very specific in your use case scenario to justify a level of hardware that Doug has. And Doug wanted that. And Doug has plans for it, but so far those plans have barely scratched the surface as far as what I know of what that computer can do. I don't see Doug running virtual machines on there. He could be running 3, 4, 5, 6 virtual machines, all with their own dedicated 32 gigs of memory, all at the same time, and still have it snappy and responsive. You try that. But is Doug doing that? I don't think he is, but he could. And I think what appealed to Doug is he has options now. It's not a question of what he's doing with it. I think it's the question of what he can do, what his needs might be tomorrow. And, ask Doug. I'm not speaking on behalf of Doug. And he's a great guy. I mean everything in the most positive light. But even all of you, likely not a single one of you can show me a screenshot of your task manager using more than 32 gigs of memory. I don't care how much memory you've got installed. And if you can take a screenshot of you using more memory than 32 gigs of RAM, please send it to us. I'm going to put the email address up here. I mean, there might be 1 or 2 of you in the world that watch this channel that maybe can say, look, I've done it. But even then, I'd still be surprised. It's such a rare occurrence. And the memory swap to an SSD drive is so fast now, you almost can't tell the difference. So if you were using more than 32 gigs of RAM, but you had 64 gigs of RAM installed, I bet you if you took half your RAM out, you would notice no difference in performance at all. There may be some special cases, but overall, I don't think you'd notice a difference, because when it exceeded the 32 gigs, it would jump over to your swap file, and your swap file on your NVMe is so fast. It's not as fast as RAM, but it's pretty damn fast now. It's not like the old days of mechanical drives where the swap file really slowed the machine down. That's when we talked about adding RAM. But this isn't those old days anymore. That whole mentality is outdated. Prove me wrong. All right, let's go to the email address, which I'll put on the screen. If you can show me how much RAM you're using, exceeding 32 gigs of RAM, regardless of how much you've got installed, I would love to see more than 32 gigs of RAM in use from any of you. Let's take a look at this little guy right here. It only has 16 gigs of RAM. How much of that RAM do you think we're using right now? Even if I opened a web browser up. Anybody want to guess? And even the slow NVMe drive, which I think this has, if it's 1800 megabytes per second, The swap file is so fast on that compared to the CPU and everything else that also is slower than the high-end stuff you're getting brainwashed with on YouTube. You probably won't notice any difference in a RAM upgrade, even if you could. So let's take a look at, let's go full screen here on camera, we're calling this camera 3. Okay, and let's hit Control-Alt-Delete. Let's go to the task manager. Then right up here, under this tab here, we'll go to, is it performance? Memory. So out of that 16 gigs of RAM, we're using 9.1 gigs while we're installing updates. Okay. Now, if I want to open a browser, and if I want to start Copilot, and if I want to open Explorer, Windows Explorer, and then go back to the task manager, oh look, it jumped up a half of a gig. I mean, it's nothing. We're not even using the 16 we've got, and yet you're automatically assuming it's not enough. Prove to me that's not enough. Prove it. We can watch as the Windows updates install, and they can be pretty resource intensive. And let's get this started up here. Confirm and continue, and confirm, and just open another tab and another tab and another tab and another tab. And then we'll go over to YouTube in one of these tabs, and we'll start playing a video. You guys are just way too easily fooled on YouTube with this nonsense that you're believing. I'm sorry, guys, and I don't mean to put anybody down, but I really want you to prove why you think more RAM is going to help you. Show me, because I'll show you. I'm going to show you real world. This is live. Bring up any video here, and we can open up another tab and bring up another video too if we want to. Go back over to YouTube again. How much RAM you think I'm using, guys? Does this computer seem slow to you? Everything's in real time. Now we got 2 videos playing. Let's look at our task manager. Oh, look. So at one point, we haven't even exceeded 10 gigs of RAM. It's saying it's committing 18.6 gigs, which would mean, I'm not sure, but if that's 2.6 gigs more than we have, it's swapping it to the storage drive, which is fast anyway. Our CPU's at 100% usage, 100%. It's given us all 4 cores, everything it's got. So no matter how much RAM we throw at that, we can't go higher than 100%. I hope this is a little more clear instead of just take my word for it. I hope by giving you a live demonstration that you can equally give me a live demonstration that proves me wrong. And I would love to see it, or even just a screenshot. My nephew called me. I gave him a hard time about putting 96 gigs of RAM in his rig. I said, you're never going to use it. Hey, Uncle Carey, yeah, I'm using it. So what are you talking about? And he sends me a screenshot of like 80 gigs of RAM in use. And I said, you know something's wrong, right? He goes, well, I'm using it. I go, no, you're not using it. You're having there's something wrong. I said, what did you do to cause that? And he said, I'm trying to run some video game. And I can't remember what the video game was. And I went to Google while I had him on the phone, and I said, you know, this game using up memory. And I said, the game works? He goes, no, the game won't start. Oh, okay, see, that's a problem. So there was a DLL file. I said, delete this DLL file. And I'm just reading from Reddit. I've never played the game. You know, he's got it from Steam. He deletes the DLL file, reboots the computer, the game plays. I said, now while the game is playing, show me your task manager now. Let me see how much RAM you're using. Okay. He knew. He's like, but I was using it. I go, you weren't using it. That was a memory leak. That was an error that was eating up all the RAM. That's not normal, and your game wasn't even working. You weren't using it. Okay. He was like tongue-in-cheek, like trying to prove me wrong, and I'm like, no, there's more to this story than you're leading on. But there's your screenshot. You asked for a screenshot, and I'm like, yeah, well, what you're showing me is a memory leak. That's very different from needing RAM. Adding more RAM is like fixing a memory leak, and that putting a larger bucket under your leaking faucet solves your leak. There's no bucket big enough. He would never have enough RAM in the world. It's the dumbest logic I've ever heard. But he was kind of being fun about it. He wasn't serious. I mean, he was serious that it was really happening, but he was teasing me about proving me wrong that he wouldn't use it. I'm like, you're still not using it. A memory leak is not using it. Cracks me up. True story. Oh, look, my browser just crashed. See, and putting more RAM isn't going to fix the memory leak. Don't confuse memory leaks with RAM. They're unrelated. Ian says Power Director and video editing software does use good amounts of RAM. Yeah, so I use Power Director all the time, and it relies heavily on the CPU more than anything else. For the most part, you can put as much RAM or change your video card out. For me, and in my experience, Power Director is very intensive on the CPU. Now, Adobe Premiere or DaVinci Resolve may be more graphics card processing. I don't know because I don't use them. But I can tell you that when I render a video out in Cyberlink Power Director on a Core i9 13900 processor, it is way faster than even a 10900 processor. It is markedly faster. It's very CPU intensive. Just as some games are more CPU intensive than GPU intensive, or even potentially RAM intensive. What tends to be RAM intensive are things like Photoshop and photo editing, but even then, unless you're doing some pretty extreme layering or pretty extreme masking on the photos, where you're putting, mask on top of mask, layer on top of layer, you're probably not even using 20-something gigs of RAM. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. You can talk till the cows come home. It's just noise. Show me. Take a screenshot. Let me see. Until I see screenshots, everybody's just, it's all conjecture. It's all assumption. It's all what you think it should be. It's what you believe. Well, you can believe whatever you want. If I can't replicate your beliefs, I'm not sharing your beliefs. And what I do here on this channel is I prove to you. This is why I chose video as my format, so I can prove to you what I'm saying. You can't necessarily do that on Reddit. You can't necessarily do that on a message forum or even in a magazine article. That's why I stopped doing all that. I said, I'm so tired of people debating with me when I have the evidence, so I'll just make a video show you the evidence. Now, if you have evidence that counters mine, let me see your video. Let me see your evidence, because too many people talk and they have no idea what they're talking about. And they want to convince you they do. And I can't tell apart very easily those who are talking from actual real world experience to those who are just living vicariously through posts online and don't actually know for real because they've not experienced it themselves. They think they have because they believe something. And then there's those who have. So for those of you who have, if any of you exist, you might, share your screenshot with me. Let me see it. Please, please. How many screenshots do you think I'm going to get sent? Check it right now. I just showed you how to check your RAM usage. Go check right now. Tell me how much RAM you're using right now, all of you. Put it in the chat. Let me see. Because there's going to be a consensus. And you want to guess what the consensus is? It ain't going to be over 32 gigs of RAM. Say that. Mark Leibowitz, who's also a computer repair technician professionally, says, I recommend 16 gigs for most of my clients. 16 gigs of RAM. I have some architect clients who run Autodesk and Adobe software, and that does use a lot of RAM. I agree. But those also aren't budget computers. But for an example of somebody that would use justify the use of more RAM. Architects, CAD, maybe Blender, stuff like that. Makers, maybe. Depends on the software, and it depends, like on a slice file, it depends how complex the slice file is. I've got accountants, and the accountants can use very basic computers, and they're happy. And I've got other accountants that say everything's a little snappier with 32 gigs of RAM, and they can't explain it, but they like it. So okay, well then we'll put 32 gigs of RAM in every machine we build for you, but not for the other accountants, because they don't notice it, and we're just wasting money. And when I say accountants, I don't mean the same place. I'm saying an accountant business that has employees will be all on the same page. If one person sees a difference with 32 gigs of RAM on the software they're using and the way that they use it, they all see it. But at another accountant office that does different kinds of work for different clients may not see it. But even then, they're still not exceeding 32 gigs of RAM. So we're not, if we put 64 in, we're wasting the client's money. And that really upsets me to see people do that. If the client specifically requests it, I'm happy to provide it. But I will let the client know, in my opinion, they're wasting money. And if the client says, I don't care, I want it anyway, no problem. I just don't want you to blame me when you see the price tag and you claim it's not any faster. So as long as we're okay with that, I'll build it, whatever you want. Just want to make sure you understand what to expect. Patrick's using 17.3 gigs of RAM, 56% of the 32 gigs he's got available. Donald Piasek with 22.7. I'm still waiting for somebody with more than 32 gigs of RAM in use right now. Not later on, and not in your imagination. Well, I've got a game that you, no, right now, how much RAM are you using? Start the game up right now. Telling you, you're believing stuff that's simply not true. Prove me wrong. John Williams said he's using 31% of 16 gigs of RAM. Olaf says he's using 14.6 gigs of 32 gigs. Are you noticing a pattern here? And I'm not suggesting that there's never an exception, but exceptions aren't normal. We're just trying to establish a baseline, what most people experience. Ben Laird in Scotland, 50% of used RAM out of 16 gigs. He's only using 8. Davis Parsons says, I sent an email showing 33.7 out of 128 gigs being used. Okay, let me... The fact that you're exceeding 32, I want to see what you're running. What is the thing that you're running? You've got one thing running, and I want to know what it is. Why is Davis different than everybody else? Mara? I'd have to have Mara forward that email to me. Davis knows what it is. You could just tell me, what is the app that you're running that's eating up all your RAM right now? Oh, you forwarded it? Thank you. Let me go back over here for a second. What am I missing? Are we still updating? %. Okay, good. It's almost done. I really want to run Crystal Disk on this just to verify if it's NVMe or SATA, but it's not going to be rocket ship fast either way. I'm just curious. Mark Gaines said he's using 1% out of 32 gigs of RAM. Ghostly Lurker says 23.5 out of 64. So what I'm suggesting is that by having 64, you're never using, more than likely you're never using more than 32. So anything above 32 was just wasting your money. It's the same as not having it. If you're not using it, it's the same as not having it. So it maybe made you feel good to use it, but in a rare occasion when you need more than 32, it just uses your swap file. Nothing crashes. And because NVMe drives are so fast, you barely will notice any difference. This idea that adding more memory adds more speed is long outdated. Long outdated. Systems aren't running off mechanical drives anymore. And while there is a minor difference and some exceptions for some users who are very intolerant or have extreme use case scenarios, it does not represent the majority of computer users' experiences, other than universally you're spending more money than you needed to just to feel good. And that's okay. But you're fooling yourself if you think it's going any faster. It's not. And I challenge each and every one of you to give me an example. And I'm sure there's a few valid examples out there, but they'll be few and far between. And most of you will not be able to prove it wrong. You'll realize, wow, I've been wasting my money on RAM. And you either don't care, or you say, thank you, I know now in the future not to put my priority on that. I'd be better off with more storage. Take that money that I was going to put into RAM, which would be wasteful, and just buy a bigger storage drive, which I could actually use. That would be a better investment, in my opinion. With a few exceptions. As I mentioned, there are some extreme use case scenarios where having more RAM is justified, but it's pretty rare. All right, let's see if I can see an email here. I still want to know what Davis has. What is the one program in your task manager that's eating the majority? He's got one program doing that, and I'm just very curious. Okay, I got an email here. Yeah, he's using 33.7, just a hair over 32, which would have gone to a swap file without him even noticing, I'll bet you. And he's got 93.8 gig available, just sitting there, wasted. By the way, his boot time is also slower because of that too. But I'd love to see your task manager. I want to see, I'm just really curious, what the heck? He's got one application, and I promise you it's just one, but it's something probably nobody else here has. And that one thing is eating his RAM, and I just really want to know. He goes, I got 5 multi-meg Excel workbooks, AutoCAD, Firefox, and Revu 2.20. I don't know what Revu is. I'll bet you AutoCAD. If he closes AutoCAD, I would love to see what your memory usage is with AutoCAD closed. Never mind Excel, never mind Firefox. No, it's nothing. That's nothing. And Revu, I don't know what Revu is. But what I am familiar with is AutoCAD. When we already talked about AutoCAD. Does anybody else in the chat room use AutoCAD? But just for the sake of curiosity, if it's convenient and you can close it and then grab another screenshot of your RAM usage, I'd love to see the difference. I bet it drops below 16. Certainly, at the most, it'd be in the low 20s. That's my guess. Just from the experience I have and everything I've seen, that would be my estimate. Donald says, you mean we don't need an AMD EPYC 4565P? Well, maybe if you're at a Google data center setting up one of the servers to process thousands of requests a second coming in from Google searches, that would be a wise investment. Are you doing that? Alvin Shaver said he's using 57% of 16 gigs, not even using 10 gigs of RAM. So why would you upgrade it? Mark Leibowitz said, I personally don't use AutoCAD, but some of my architect clients do. And the rest use, Revit. Is that what it's supposed to be, Revit? Another RAM-hungry Autodesk product. Okay. Donald mentions DeepSeek. DeepSeek isn't really that dependent on RAM. You're mostly going to be on your processor on that. Your NPU. It's going to be very NPU processing heavy. Is this done yet? Why is this taking so long? Because it's a budget computer. If you're going to order one of these, plan accordingly. That's why I do this live. I want you to understand what you should be prepared for. If you want all this done for you, you can spend a bit more money. Mark Leibowitz continues, I just learned from one of my architect clients that SketchUp, which used to be a lightweight Google product, now has some pretty demanding hardware requirements. I haven't heard of SketchUp in years. Does anybody in the chat room use SketchUp? Patrick says, I upgraded from my previous 16 gigs on my old system since Battlefield 2042 game was using up to 90% of my previous 16 gig DDR4. So when I purchased this newer system, I grabbed 32 gig of DDR5. So these issues with games, it's just bad coding. Games right now, the game developers are writing really sloppy, inefficient code. And I think that's going to be coming to a head here pretty soon when people start pushing back. You're spending $80, $90 on a game and it's not optimized. And because it's not optimized, instead of the developer optimizing the game to run on lower hardware, they're telling you, if you want to play the game, you need to have better hardware because we can't be bothered to optimize our code. So we're going to put all this unoptimized code on your resources for you to deal with it, and you're going to pay us for that. And at some point, consumers are going to say, look, you're taking up 2 terabytes of a hard drive for one game that's slow as hell with the best hardware, $2,000 video card, and it barely plays. There's one reason for that, crappy coding. And when that starts affecting game sales, then the developers will start spending more time and effort into optimizing the game. And you'll be surprised that 2 terabyte game might just fit into under a terabyte and require far less resources to run it properly. So many people don't understand the role of the developer, and they assume that when the developer tells you you need a certain limited hardware set, they assume that's universally true. It isn't. It's absolutely not. Optimized code is not the same as just slapping code together because you're on a time limit to get a product out the door. And sooner or later, this is going to catch up with them. You watch. We're this close to being done with this. So we are running a bit long today, but this is in real time, and I wanted to make sure I give it a thorough look, as I always do. Again, a shout out and a thank you to Peladin, who sent us the unit for review, and I think this is a great contender for best bang for the buck mini PC available that you can buy today. You can go on Amazon and get this. And with 16 gigs of RAM and 512 storage, what you have to understand is most of these budget machines are half the RAM and half the storage. That's how they're able to get the price down to 120, 125. 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig storage. And that may be fine too, by the way. Depends on what you're using the machine for. But for like 15 or 20 more bucks, the fact that you could double the RAM and storage, not one or the other, but both, why not just spend the extra 20 bucks? You know, I think there's a better value there. The value isn't always in the cheapest thing. The value is in the most you're getting for the amount of money you're spending. So in that, I think Peladin is our winner, and I just say that today. This could all change tomorrow if the competitors come out with something even more aggressively priced and equally or better equipped. The only question that remains is it a SATA or NVMe drive? Because a lot of those cheap, inexpensive budget computers are going to be SATA drives. And again, probably not that big of a deal, but the idea that we could be getting a drive that runs 3 times faster for the same amount of money, why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? So it looks like we're ready to restart. And then this will go through the final upgrade process of 24H2. There'll be a couple more updates, but I'm not going to run those right now. I'm going to run Crystal Disk Mark, and we'll wrap it up for today. So if you have other questions or subject matter on your mind you want to discuss tech related here on the show, I'm happy to address your comments, questions, feedback right now. Scott said he's using 9.4 gigs out of 32 gigs. Think about if Scott had 16 gigs of RAM, he still wouldn't be using all of it. So the fact that he paid extra for more of, if there's only so much food you're going to eat on the plate, getting more food, I'm going to get 2 combo meals and then only eat one of them, and then the rest of it goes in the trash. Why did I buy the second combo meal? So that's the point I'm trying to make. And that's not to suggest that Scott, you know, I'm just mentioning him because he's the latest one in the chat. That's not to say that Scott never uses 32, but I'll bet you he never does. And I suppose if he ever sees that he's using more than 16, he can say, okay, well, at least I didn't completely waste my money. On the other hand, if he pulls half that RAM out, just for the sake of wondering if I'm crazy or not, would he notice any swapping? Probably not. Will he notice any slowness or hesitation on the computer? Probably not. But if he does, well, at least he's satisfied, and you go, okay, well, in my case, Carey's information doesn't apply to me because I do notice it. Or are you wanting to notice it and it's all psychosomatic and it's all a placebo? Either way, if you notice it for real or for fake, then you didn't waste your money. But if you can't notice it, keep that in mind the next time you think RAM is going to solve a problem. Not today, it usually doesn't. There's few occasions where it actually makes any difference. Once you're beyond 16, once you have 16, and certainly when you have 32, that's it. You're just not going to be using it. It's just throwing money away. There are some exceptions. Are you one of them? Probably not. Maybe. Odds are you're not, though. So now you know. And if you question it, test it yourself. Don't take anybody's word for it. Test it yourself. Then you can come back and tell me if you think I'm right or wrong. Ghostly Lurker said Microsoft Flight Sim 2024 recommends 64 gigs, but that's on max settings, and they do say their bare minimum is 16. That's a pretty heavy, intense game, though. I mean, when we talk about, you know, can it run Crysis? That's one of those games that, again, it's not an optimized game. That's the main issue with it. And there's a lot of data on the screen that's being processed in flight simulators. So when we're dealing with physics and you know, all of the mapping that's required when you're flying over the land and it's all mapped out, 3D mapped out, those are some huge models. Now, a lot of that's going to be placed on the graphics card, or at least it should be. But each game developer, or any developer, chooses in what language they develop, and if they're going to be utilizing dynamic link libraries or DLL files that come from a graphics card or the Windows operating system, or some third-party, you know, framework stuff, or, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And they're not all equal. And why one chooses to code one way and one chooses to code another way, no idea why. There's no standard on that. But I guarantee you that Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024 is not an optimized game. And I don't think they have any reason to spend the money that it would cost to optimize it. They'll just tell you buy more RAM. Mark Leibowitz said, if I add another 16 gigs of RAM to my desktop PC, bringing the total to 32 gigs, I bet I still won't be able to remember where I left my car keys the next morning. Who uses car keys anymore? What's that? Oh, look, it's in Chinese now. This This is an exact reason, what you're seeing right now, why I don't embed the updates or try to skip over the installation process. I didn't even notice that until Patrick T mentioned this in the chat room. I wasn't even paying attention. So right there is a live, real-world example of what's possible that I want to catch, because I promise you, if a customer sees that on their screen, that I sold this computer to, or I'm responsible for maintenance on this computer, I'm getting a phone call. Not that anything is broken or not working, but something isn't right. I've never seen a computer display that before, so why does this one do that? And should I be worried? That is a justifiable support call. That, by me seeing it now, I can figure out what's going on there, even if it means a nice clean install of Windows 11. For me personally, I don't care. But the minute I am responsible, when it's in somebody else's hands, I am expected to meet reasonable expectations of how that computer behaves and reacts. That's why. It's exactly why we take our time and we do this process, because otherwise I'll be spending 4 times longer getting a phone call, trying to figure out what the customer is explaining, trying to replicate the problem, wondering what the customer was trying to describe. It's already done. Oh my gosh, do you know what a nightmare that would be? Then the customer's inconvenienced with their system being unavailable while I'm looking into it, whether remotely or otherwise. And if I end up having to take it, reinstall Windows on it to correct this issue because it's bothering the customer, that's more work and more hours than what we spent today by far. That's why slow and steady wins the race. I'll keep saying it again and again and again. Just because you get away with it by cutting corners doesn't mean you always will. And all it takes is one time, and it defeats any gains you had gotten prior, especially when you're doing this on behalf of customers paying you. It is your responsibility, and it's your accountability, and it's your consequences. And that could be enough for a customer to say, I don't want to buy from you. I've lost confidence in your ability. I've never seen that before. I've never dealt with it before. And now I'm not quite sure I want to give you another chance because this is weird. And unless I gave them a really super good deal, if they could have potentially paid similar money to somebody else and not had that problem, believe me, they're thinking about it. So now how much did that cost me? What are my losses from that customer taking their business elsewhere? Even though my losses include making it right, getting that customer's confidence back may never happen again regardless. So the consequences start to compound, and things get really difficult to recover from. Phil Stodd said we can look in the installed applications to see if other language items are installed. Absolutely. Yeah. So Ghostly Lurker says, so far there is a disabled security feature and now Chinese language in the bootloader during updates. You are looking at one of the least expensive computers that you can buy. In fact, it may be the cheapest computer with the most amount of power, RAM, and storage at this price that you can buy under warranty. This computer may have been built last year, which is why it's discounted. It's still brand new. And it's configured to be sold in multiple countries, which is probably why it has multiple language packs. None of these things are detrimental, but if they are to you, if you're expecting white glove service, you need to pay white glove prices. But if you're a tolerant and understanding individual who understands what you're buying, and you reach out to the company, they will help you. Not all companies do, but Peladin stands behind their products. And if you have an issue, they're there to help you. And if you bought it from Amazon and you find it's unacceptable, Amazon will take it back for a full refund at no cost to you to send it back to Amazon, and you'll get a 100% money back. So I think you'd be far-fetched to complain. When you pay a certain amount of money, to expect everything to be perfect, that's different than when you're paying the lowest amount of money to get something at all that nobody else can provide you with. Show me another manufacturer of a mini PC equipped similarly on Amazon right now. Find me one that's cheaper than this, that is the same or better than this one in processor, RAM, and storage, and also provides support. Just show me one. And do you think all of that's the same? Do you think if you buy a $5,000 car, that's the same service and quality as a $500,000 car? Because I don't know what to say to you. It's crazy. Nothing's perfect. The question is, if things are out of date, is it because it's an older model? If things are cheaper, is it because it's an older model? Or is there something wrong with it? And if there is something wrong with it, no company is perfect. But how the company deals with it, that's what differentiates good companies from bad ones. Will they help us? Will they find us a solution? Do we not want to deal with it? Are we intolerant and we demand the best, but we're cheap and we refuse to pay $1 for it? That's your choice. Send it back to Amazon, get your money back. In no way do you have anything to complain about that's justifiable at this price point for what you're getting for the money, in my opinion. You're being unreasonable. But you have every right to be. I don't agree with it. When it comes to fixing the secure boot issue, it's a very simple thing. If we, for example, let me go full screen over here, and let's go into our BIOS. Let me show you how easy this is to deal with. Restart. And you can search YouTube for videos on this. It's pretty much all the same on all computers. And yeah, I've got machines I've built that I go back and look at. Some of them don't have secure boot on. I wasn't looking for it. It wasn't set in the BIOS by default. It's a 45-second fix or a 2-minute fix. I was talking and I missed getting into the BIOS. And you know what? It's a good excuse to go take a look at the BIOS. These mini PCs are going to have text-based, very basic BIOSes, and they really don't want you in there because it's often a cause for a support call. Support calls cost them money to have to talk to you. They got to pay an employee. Nobody's working over there for free to help you get educated. Tutoring you is not support, but it doesn't stop support calls requesting tutoring from coming in. That if they don't answer, they're a bunch of jerks, so they have to answer it. And they have to be politically correct, right? They can't say, well, you shouldn't have gone in there and you shouldn't have done that. And then you're going to say, well, these people are disrespectful and they talk down to me, right? So they have to pay employees to talk to you in a politically correct, corporated boilerplate process where it's basically telling you the same thing, sugar-coated. And they have to pay somebody's salary to do that because you did something to yourself and now you want them to fix your mess. And you want them to explain to you how you created your mess, therefore tutoring you. It's unrealistic. But this is what companies face. The cost of support on this mini computer is well over $300 a year, potentially. If you got somebody calling all the time, emailing all the time, and they're a pain in your butt, you would be cheaper to buy the computer back from them and give them an extra $100 and say, please don't buy our product ever again. Or they simply stop answering you, and then the customer says, well, they're jerks, I'm never going to buy from them again. And they're like, thank goodness. We don't have to deal with that person anymore. Not all customers are good customers. You don't make money from all customers. And if you have too many customers that are costing you more than you're making, you no longer have a business, and now you won't have any customers, good or bad. Oh, what was I doing? I'm going to Windows Update. I'm going to Advanced. I'm going to Recovery, I'm going to Advanced Startup, and then we'll go into the BIOS like that. I don't seem to be hitting the right key at the right time, so this is just another way I can get in there. Chris Johnson, now a member for 36 months. That's awesome, Chris. Thank you. He says, hello, Carey, Mara, and my friends in chat, celebrating 3 years with the channel. Love it. Thank you, Chris. Matt Solov joins us, always saying good night. Sorry I missed you again. Well, we'll see you next time, but I'm glad you popped in and said hello. Always good to see you. Matt Solov. And, oh, look, it's all in Chinese here. Yikes. Oh, boy. Interesting. So that's going to be power over here. This is settings, then other options, and then UEFI BIOS, and restart. You bet you didn't even know I could read Chinese, Cantonese, Mandarin. I don't know. That's a Windows thing, though. It's not a computer. It's not like the BIOS comes up in a foreign language. Anyway, so we're going to go over to security. We're going to go over here to secure boot. Check this out. And we're going to change secure boot to custom, and we're going to restore factory keys. Hit yes. And usually it reboots on its own. Do I have to do it manually? Just be patient, Carey. Shouldn't be taking this long. But that's all there is to it. Press yes to proceed. Yes. Okay, then I have to hit escape. A lot of BIOSes just auto restart, so I was waiting for no reason. Save changes, exit. It's a user error. It's always a user error. When it reboots now, we'll be in secure boot. So that's really the amount of time you spend complaining about it. It takes less time to fix it. If this were a $3,000 computer, I would have different levels of what I find acceptable. That is not a big deal. So let's go check it right now and see if that made a difference. We'll go to MS Info and secure boot state. Oh, still off. That means there's one other settings that's missing. Normally that's all there is, but it may be. Well, let's do two things since I'm in here. Let's take a look at, see if there's any foreign language apps installed. I think that was a great idea from Phil, just to look and see if maybe one of these foreign language apps are in here. I'm not seeing anything. The other thing we can do is we can check our region areas. So if we go under, what's it under? What's it? Time and language, language and region, English, preferred languages, English, country, English, regional format, I'm going to say American English, or United States. How do they have it listed here? Normally on my installs, they're English only. These are multi-language installs since they're selling all over the world. So there may be some settings here that I'm changing I don't normally have to. Preferred language should simply be what I'm guessing is already there, English. See, it's shaded out, so we've already got it. Region set, regional format is set. I can't imagine where anything else, administrative language, hold on, maybe it's in here. View and copy your international settings, no. Language for non-interchange system locale, no, it's still going to be US. English, 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 English. Nothing here would explain to me why I'm seeing the other language. So let's try it again and see if it still does it. Advanced recovery, advanced startup. Okay, things got really interesting, didn't they? That's why we run the tests. I don't expect to find these kind of errors, but I'm still looking for them. And every once in a while they show up. And so long as they show up every once in a while, it justifies my process. But this is a weird one. This is definitely different, but it's not a game breaker, a game changer. Yeah, we're still getting this Chinese language here, which is bizarre. One more time, when we go in the BIOS, I want to make sure that I have Secure Boot enabled. And there's one other setting in here I want to look for. Let's take a look. Don't think there's anything in here I need to worry about. That all looks fine. Care about that. Secure Boot enabled. Custom restore factory keys. Do we have any factory keys? I don't see any keys in here. They all say 0. I wonder, and if that's the case, then that means at the factory they have missed a step. It says vendor keys are valid. I can't see them. That's what bothers me. I should be able to see the keys. When I hit restore factory keys and I hit yes, this should fill in. But if they never plugged any in at the factory, then that's the same problem we saw with Max Tang, where a BIOS update, this would be contained in the BIOS. So maybe there's no keys in here. So this problem got to be a bigger deal than just simply resetting factory keys. If there's no factory keys to reset, we didn't do anything. We went right back to where we were. So let's save changes and exit one last time. We'll check it one more time. And yeah, I'm going to guess there's no key in there. And that is something provided by the manufacturer. It's nothing you would plug in. Not that you couldn't. I mean, you could take the key out of another computer and plug it in. It's not like it's that important. Some manufacturers even use the same key across the entire lineup of computers. That's normal. And some change it for every machine built. Depends on the manufacturer. But they should not be going out with no keys at all. That's an error in manufacturing. Let's do MS Info one more time. Still off. Yeah, I don't think we've got keys in there. So, interesting. Glad you pointed that out. Crystal Dismark, and then let's get out of here because we are definitely running a late show today. It's a bit ironic that the more expensive the computer is, the less setup it needs, generally speaking, and the cheaper you spend, the cheaper the product, the more time you may have to invest into setting it up. And errors like this are more common. It's not excusable, but it's not surprising. So let's go to grab Crystal Dismark off of here. And we'll reach out to Peladin and we'll find out, we'll find out what they say about this, and we'll let you know. In the meantime, let's find out what kind of performance we're getting out of our internal drive. I'm hoping it's NVMe. Just because if it is, it's a better value. Again, most computers at this price point with this kind of processor are going to be SATA. Even M.2, but still SATA. And it looks like we're SATA here. So it's going to be SATA. I can stop this test. Quite frankly, we can just take a look at Crystal Disk Info now. Now that I see the numbers, those are SATA numbers. Oh, my enthusiasm is waning. I'm so hopeful this was a perfect machine for the price. Clearly a little rough around the edges still, but again, still a good value. Just not as good as I thought, but still good. Let's see. Who makes this? Peladin usually has their own branded drives. Yeah, and so it is the same. It is a branded Peladin drive. So if you see the brand is Peladin, you're not dealing with a high-end drive. They're putting in budget drives. It lowers the cost of the machine and they keep their branding. But again, nothing money can't fix. The other machines at this price point usually have 256 gigs of RAM, and 256 gigs of storage, that's also SATA, and 8 gigs of RAM. And they cost about the same. There may be $20 difference at most. So if the only difference between the two is, for whatever reason, we're missing our secure boot keys, which they're going to correct for us, you'll see, probably through a BIOS update. It's the only way I know to do it. And they will, even if everything else is the same, the 16 gigs of RAM versus 8 and the 512 gig of storage versus 256 will make it the value leader. It just, would have been nice if it was NVMe, but again, it's still a slow machine. It just bums me out a little bit. It's really just getting caught up in numbers. The actual performance difference, you may not even notice it, but I was hopeful. There you go. So thank you for your participation, and thanks for pointing those things out and reminding me to check those things, because especially when we get crunched for time, I end up missing out. And it was a good excuse to take a quick look at our BIOS. So yeah, we'll follow up with Peladin. We'll find out what they have to say about the lack of secure boot keys. I expect they're going to point us to a BIOS update, and we'll save that for a part 2. Thank you to Mara, of course, for all of the work she does behind the scenes and getting our video descriptions and thumbnails made, talking with companies like Peladin to arrange for these computers to be sent. Thanks to Peladin for sending it. And yeah, it looks like we got a little room for improvement. But other than that, I want to thank Davis Parsons for sending the screenshot. I want to thank Lawrence Pierre for your PayPal contribution. I want to thank Brian Cometa at $300 Data Recovery for answering my question. I want to thank Frankie B sent us a PayPal contribution. I just saw that, Frankie. Thank you so much. Lou Greenia, a very generous Amazon gift card. I thank you again. Our friend Buster with a very generous Amazon gift card. Our friend Charlie Purdy. They all contributed the same, which is almost like it was coordinated. That's fantastic. Mark Gaines, thank you for the Amazon gift card. You guys are amazing, and the backbone of this whole channel, so that we can also go out and purchase items to review instead of relying on the kindness of manufacturers who then have to tolerate my criticism about the secure keys. That being said, thank you to everybody who renewed their membership today as well. Many of you at 36 months, and everybody in green, thank you guys for being the underwriters to these videos so we can continue to make them. And to everybody who's just in our chat as part of our community, and your participation in the chat is greatly appreciated. Even if we disagree, I enjoy interacting with each and every one of you. All right, that's it for this Tuesday's show. We'll have some updates when we have updates. Don't forget to remind me, because I might move on to other projects. So you might need to ask me in the chat, like, hey, what's going on with that? We do intend, though, to make a part 2 to follow this up, so we have some final answers here. Right now, I'm still recommending this because I don't think that's a big deal. But a lot can change. Something could go on sale tomorrow. Somebody else can introduce something similarly priced that doesn't have this problem. Just know, everything's fluid. But right now, I still stick to this. I think it's really well built. It's very quiet, and it's quite responsive. It's not perfect. Unlike, me. I might be a little rough around the edges, but hey, we're working on it. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for hanging out. Don't forget our friends at SCD Keys have those discounted Windows and Office licenses you can buy that are fully backed up with 6 months of support. If you want to buy a license key for Windows, don't shop around for the cheapest, because you're rolling dice. By the way, if you want the cheapest, find the cheapest that has support if you need it. And I don't think you'll find a cheaper price than SCD Keys. But yes, if you want somebody that just throws you a key and they disappear and never talk to you again, you could probably pick it up cheaper, and maybe it'll work and maybe it won't. Good luck with that. If you want to make sure it's going to work every time, it's legal, it's legit, and you're not paying more than you have to, I don't think you're going to find a better deal. I use it myself. I use it for my clients, and I'm not making any commission if you buy it or not, okay? So I'm just putting it out there for you. Coupon code Carey gets you an additional 30% off. If you've gotten anything from this, you should understand I'm trying to save you money without saying, well, it's okay to not have support, or it's okay to be stuck with it. It's never okay to be stuck with something. Even in a case like this, we could always return it to Amazon if we bought it from Amazon. We have 30 days, full refund. So there's no risk in anything I'm talking about on my channel. If there is, I will definitely make that clear. And I don't normally promote anything like that. Same exact expectation my customers have. If they're not satisfied, they expect it made right, they expect a refund, or they're taking their business somewhere else forever. That's the only way I know how to run a business, and I run my YouTube channel the same way. Just in case you're wondering what motivates me, there it is. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks again to all of you. We'll see you all again very, very soon, and until next time, bye for now.